What's going on, everyone? Welcome to the Season Gaming Bitcast, episode 263. I'm your host, Ainsley Bowden. This week, without technical issues, thank goodness, and I'm here with our full crew ready to roll. Let's start with the guy who has 200 plus hours already in Starfield, Mr. Tie Guy. Travis, how we doing, man?
What's up, everyone? Yeah, very excited to talk about Starfield finally. I haven't played it for a month. Yeah, I'm very excited to talk about it.
Hasn't been that long, but
it's 3 weeks. I think it's been over 3 weeks. Yeah, it's a long time. But yeah, it's very cool. I'm excited to see people starting to play it now and all having their own adventures. And I'm off playing a different game and kind of wishing I'm still playing Starfield. So, like right before I got a new game to review and everybody started playing Starfield, I was like, just done with everything that I could think to do in the game and started doing the story mission. And then I got like 2 story missions in, and then I was like, ah, damn it, I've got to go leave and do something else. So I'm 200 hours in and still have barely met like any of the main character NPCs that you meet or anything like that. And it's kind of funny. So you guys are probably already farther.
Yeah,
my approach was extremely different, but that was on purpose. Like we had people who were writing walkthroughs, which by the way, the IGN walkthrough of Starfield is done now. You can get a walkthrough for the whole game, which is kind of interesting. And then, you know, Dan had to beat the game for the review, and they were like, Travis, why don't you just find out what else you can do? And I was like, all right, I'll do that. I'll go be a pirate for 200 hours and just go and explore the galaxy. And so I did complete all the faction quest lines. So
okay, we're going to get there. This was an introduction.
Yeah. Anyway, I'm just, you know,
I'm a all right. Yeah, shut up already. Jesus, let me move on.
All right. Well, I'm happy
to be here. Joining us, as always, is Hogue Law, bounty hunter. We learned this morning. Look for a new business operation forming in the coming weeks. How you doing, brother?
I'm doing well. I've been playing Starfield all weekend.
Nice. Growing the mullet out? You getting ready?
No, not quite.
Collective. Freestar Collective. That's you, man. Do it.
It's enjoyable.
I'm Hogue, and I am the law out here on the frontier. I'm the law that matters.
And of course, Mr. Rodriguez rocking the 7th shirt on a good day to do that, of course, given the ridiculous dialogue this week, or the past few days, I should say. But anyway, how you doing, brother?
I'm good. I was really disappointed with the Xbox community. I thought you guys could do a little bit better with the punching at the reviewers. But it got kind of old and very uninformed. So I need you guys to step your game up for whatever one comes out next, and really go to town on it, because you know it was just like, gosh, you guys are kind of lazy with this. You know, I want to see some good comments, some really well thought out stuff. But you know, it really wasn't great.
Get your
it was still
funds ready.
Yeah. You know, you gotta do something.
The type of people that leave those comments typically aren't going to be very well prepared or educated.
It was not good. Like even you know, we always talk about this in our like a good FU, you know, a well placed FU, and that's all you have to put in, and that's it. And I'm like, that is hilarious.
Look at Hogue's face.
I mean, that's it. Like, you know, you don't have to go into it and start comparing everything, and you know, like you don't have to. You just do a nice simple thing, and it makes all the difference. You know. So,
there you go.
Appreciate
all
it.
Right. Well, obviously, you know, the big topic today is going to be Starfield, and a lot about that. The reviews, the game's design, expectations, disappointments, everything to go along with that. We will not spoil anything, so don't worry about that. And of course, we've got a few other things to talk about as well. You know, PlayStation Plus, we've got Nintendo's Direct with Super Mario Wonder, got a couple other game reviews to get to as well. So we will get through all of that. Good morning, everyone. Hogue Law had a bounty that just popped up. He had to run.
Take off.
He was like, wait, are we not playing Starfield on the show? I'm out. Got stars to explore. Peace.
Oh my God. I get it. It's been like 4 weeks straight with like someone screwing up in some form, you know.
Yeah.
When you think
usually
me. I'm here, man.
It happens. All right. So what's the bet? He hit the wrong button? Because that's usually what happens.
My guess
I've done that
is
several times.
His computer just restarted.
Yeah.
Now that I know he's on a PC, it makes a lot more sense.
There he is. He's coming back.
They'll do that, man. They'll just decide to start on you, man.
Hey, Ho, glad you could join us. How you doing, man?
Sorry. My computer decided to just take away all of its connectivity to the whole setup and say, we're just a laptop now.
Nice.
Oh, man.
Oh my God.
We had bet that a bounty had caught up with you. Someone put behind bars, showed
knock
up
at the door. Yeah. All right. So before we start jumping in everything, of course, we've got a couple early comments. Guys are killing me. Couple early comments right out of the gate. Let's go ahead and get to these super chats with Googleman starting very early this morning.
Great. Googleman with the €5 super chat. I wonder if Starfield features guards telling stories about having been explorers before someone shot them with a laser in the leg. Grilled cheeses.
Right. There is a reference to it. I don't know if you guys know this, but if you upgrade, there's one of the skills where you do more damage to like people's limbs or something like that. It's one of the damage ones, and when you upgrade it to its fullest level, it shows a picture of an arrow going through a knee.
Yeah, it shows you getting shot in the knee.
Yeah, there is a arrow to the knee reference. Of course, there is.
Yeah.
No, I will say the NPCs have a pleasantly diverse set of comments for the most part. I've been really impressed by them talking like they're in the space they're in. That's impressive.
Yeah, gotcha.
Yeah, it's we'll get to it, of course. Grilled cheeses for the win. I'm with you there, Googleman. Thank you as always for the early super chat. We've got a member comment from Random Name. Great to be listening live. Starfield is so good. Thank you, Random Name. He also has a super chat, Dan.
Yeah, so sad to hear Volition closed. Really enjoyed the series because of Saints Row.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Crazy.
I mean, Volition made some of my favorite stuff. Speaking of Starfield, they made Free Space. Free Space was awesome back in the day.
Yes.
I don't think I ever played Free Space.
Free Space 2. Yeah. It's one of the best space shooters, simis kind of thing. It's one of my favorite games. Like PC games of all time. I love that game.
Free Space was awesome.
Free Space was amazing.
Wow. Yeah, it's the same. Some comments around kind of Embracer Group, buying, and now starting to narrow things back down in terms of scope. So we'll see what happens with the rest of those two. I believe Gearbox got hit as well, not closed, obviously, but I believe there were layoffs at Gearbox.
Yep.
Yeah, they have a publishing arm, so I think Gearbox had to cut down a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now that they have a parent company, there's probably less need for publishers under their subsidiaries.
Yep.
This is unfortunate. I think their last game was the Saints Row reboot, which, if I recall, did not do well, primarily because of technical issues and the way the game launched, which is kind of a common thing. But yeah, it's unfortunate to see it because I thought they had a lot of potential, but maybe they ran out of money or whatever. But this is what happens post-acquisition.
Yeah, it's a shame. So I hope, as usual, kind of the gaming developer community, I saw a bunch of other kind of studios saying, hey, hit us up. We're looking for people. So hopefully those people find another good job. But yeah, it is definitely sad. Thank you, Random Name, for the being a member and the super chat. And Console Peasant is back.
Here to get my weekly dose of Bitcast. Appreciate it.
We're here to provide it.
Yeah.
Short and sweet. I like it, Console Peasant. Yep. Thank you very much. And where am I at here? Trying to get everything.
Oh no.
Oh my God.
What's oh my God? What happened?
I was saying nothing.
No.
It looked I don't know. You didn't see the transition. The transition was
it was in like 15 FPS.
No, I think we had a couple of tough announcements this week because Volition's one of my favorites. And they're gone. And I'm also playing a game this week. I know you haven't prompted me for that yet, Ains.
Go for it.
Called Shadow Tactics, which is from, I think it's Me that made the Shadow games. Not Shadow Tactics. I'm playing Shadow Gambit, the pirate one.
Gambit.
And they made Shadow Tactics. They made Desperados 3. They've done these
kind
of Commandos style games. I don't know a better way to frame them. Yeah. But they also closed. After a lot of very critical success with their games, but apparently not enough commercial success to let them buy an island.
Yeah, I did see that announcement as well.
It's a niche. mean, those games were pretty decent for the most part, but
Shadow Gambit is great. Are you interested in tactically controlling zombie pirates?
Yeah, I think that's the tough balance, right?
Yeah.
Because that's what what's his name? Tim Schafer's probably one of the more known ones to speak out about that type of thing, right? And how his 15 plus years at Double Fine was primarily spent just trying to find money, right? Trying to find funding, trying to find a way to make games and continue to make games they wanted to make, which is a big reason why they signed with Xbox. But it's almost the counterpoint to what we talk about acquisitions and consolidation, right? There's that balancing act between the two, because you have these situations where smaller developers who make good games just can't find the audience and can't find the funding to continue doing that, and it's disappointing in a way.
Yeah, I mean, I think their note was nice. It made a lot of sense to me. It was basically, the grind is too much. We're constantly game to game. It's too much pressure. It's too much stress. We got to do something else. That makes a lot of sense to me as a small business owner. It's like sometimes you're just like, nah, let's get out of this.
It's a grind. Yeah. And if you're always on that line, it's, I only know a little bit from experience, but have talked to many. It's not only a grind, but it's exhausting, right? It just wears you down.
Yeah, you're just stressed all the time.
Yeah, exactly. So, but yeah, sad to hear. Hopefully, as always, wish the best to the developers that were impacted, and it's a sad part of the market, I'm afraid. So. But yeah, jump into before we get to Starfield. Obviously, that's going to be the bulk of our conversation today. But before we get there, I know, for instance, Travis, I know you reviewed Trine 5.
Yeah,
and we've been playing a few other games. You want to touch on that?
Yeah. I will talk about some of the games I played this past week. I did review Trine 5, A Clockwork Conspiracy. If you were into puzzle platformers, then I'm sure you already know that Trine series is one of the best puzzle platformer series we've got in the industry. They continue to put out good stuff, and Trine 5, A Clockwork Conspiracy, is of course no exception to that. I gave it an 8 out of 10. It is a very good puzzle platformer, more challenging than previous Trine games, which is a refreshing change from some of their more simple puzzles in previous games. It is also a couch co-op game that you can play with your loved ones, or if you don't have any loved ones like me, you can play with your enemies. Yeah, which I often do. And I also do.
By the way,
with my enemies.
I do like that you continue to say you have no loved ones as you got engaged, like post engagement.
Here we go. Have you met her though, Ains? She is. I don't know if you know this. Not a fan. Really, not a fan of me. But yeah, she's charitable though. She's jumping on that grenade pretty hard. And we all thank her for that. But yeah.
Thank you for your service.
So Trine is an awesome game. It is a quick play. You can get through it in like 8 to 10 hours. It's a $30 game, well worth your money if you are into puzzle platformers. That's all I have to say about that one. It's pretty good. You can read my review. Fair. I think my review is like 2,000 plus words on it, but so I obviously have more to say, but it's a good game that's worth your time. I also played Skull and Bones.
Oh, wow.
You talked a little bit about it last week, but
kept playing Skull and Bones.
Yeah, I kept playing Skull and Bones. So I did write a preview about that. You can see online, but that game is real. It exists. You can actually
I don't believe you.
Yeah, I know. A lot of people don't believe me when I say that, but it's a real game that you can play. And I actually was pleasantly surprised by how well developed it was and how far along it is. It actually feels like a fun game and definitely a spiritual successor to Assassin's Creed 4 Black Flag, which is cool. And then I played more Palia. Palia is having its first live event right now. It's a night market called Magi Market, where you chase around groundhogs named Chappas in hats, and you have to put them back in their pen. And
naturally,
cozy stuff going on in a cozy game that you can play. I mostly know about that one because I covered it exclusively for IGN. I actually broke the news that event was happening, which is weird, but also because Dee plays a lot of it. She's like 400 hours into Palia, y'all. She's max social links with all of the villagers. It's kind of wild how into that game she is. But yeah, that as well. And then yeah, other than that, just a lot of Starfield. Like you said at the beginning of the show, I've been 200 hours into Starfield, and that is absolutely most of what I've been playing this past week, with great gusto, as you might imagine. So
nice.
We'll talk about that later. But yeah.
Yeah, of course.
Oh, and then I'm also currently playing Liza P. I'm like at the end of that game. So
yes,
I can't talk about it. It's under embargo, but I'm playing that one. That's my next review. So
yeah, that's I don't think we'll even be able to talk next week about that. I think it's the following
September
week.
14 is the day I can talk about it, and then the game comes out September 19.
Thought it was 17. No, 19.
Nope, okay. 19. Yeah.
Cool. All right. So yeah, more to come on Liza P. I know. I think that's one we're covering too. I'm not reviewing that, but I'm pretty sure we have someone on that one. That's coming to Game Pass as well. So even if you're not a big Soulsborne fan, you can at least try it if you're a Game Pass subscriber. Anyway, Hogue, I know you are neck deep in Starfield as well, but prior to that launching, anything else you've been kind of diving into?
Yeah, and even after it launched, I've been playing a lot of games this week. Not to be confusing at all, I've been playing a lot of Sea of Stars, which is not at all like Starfield, but it is excellent. If you like old JRPGs, if you like that graphical style, if you like turn-based role-playing, it is a very, very good game.
Yeah, our reviewer, Eric, who I think everyone knows here, Game Positive, he gave it a 9. He said it is brilliant. And I know it's very, very highly regarded. He's not alone, obviously. So sounds like a kind of an old mix of, I haven't played it yet, but it sounds from his review and other reviews like a 16-bit kind of homage to that SNES era, Chrono Trigger, the old Final Fantasy,
Chrono Trigger in particular seems to be the basis for what they were focused on. And then it's got a lot of kind of action turn-based stuff from like a Super Mario RPG.
Right.
And a bunch of interesting new ideas about how you might be able to manage those things. So it's simple, but with depth. It's really well done.
It's awesome. What a year for games, man. Good God.
Mm-hmm.
It's too much.
Yeah, it is, honestly, because, well, yeah, we'll get to it. But, okay. What else you got for me?
I was also playing a game called, I think it's Beneath the Waves. Might be Under the Waves. I never remember which preposition it has. It's a narrative kind of game from a company that isn't Quantic Dream, but it's published by Quantic Dream, so it has that kind of flavor.
Oh, okay.
Where you're
Under the Waves, Silkenet says.
All right. Yep. I thought I got that.
Waves did something. Waves did something to you. Yeah.
Well, you're like a diver / submarine explorer that is working through
your name Dave?
Strategy.
Oh, okay. Very different. Never mind.
But I can tell you,
Dave. Your name is Stan.
Damn
it!
So close to Dave the Divers this year.
Yeah.
Dave the Diver will not be on the Game of the Year list, by the way.
Yeah, it's got that kind of cinematic quality. This is you're doing weird joystick moves to open airlocks, that kind of thing.
Sure.
But that's my cup of tea, is those narrative games, and then also the Baldur's Gate 3 early launch for the PlayStation was this weekend. So I'm not sure I can actually mix Starfield and Baldur's Gate at the same time. My brain is kind of breaking, but I wanted to try it out on the PlayStation because my computer just was not happy with it, and so it's great on the PlayStation. It's a very crunchy game. I mean, I don't know that anybody who's interested in games and is listening to a Bitcast doesn't know how Baldur's Gate 3 works at this point, but it is very difficult to play the combat encounters in that game. And so remembering how that works and Starfield works at the same time is maybe just a little bit too much.
Yeah. I think I know for me with Starfield here now, I've put down everything else because for exactly that reason. The biggest problem for me when I play something like Starfield that has FPS kind of shooter bases going between that and competitive shooters, because it really screws you up. Like you start to get used to the feel of Starfield and you go back to play Halo competitive and you just get wrecked. But that's a whole nother topic.
You always get wrecked anyway.
Hey, calm it down. Yeah. Calm it down. Is Under the Waves, real quick. You said you're playing it. Is it any good?
I mean, yes, but people need to understand my tilt on this stuff, right? Like, I love those kind of narrative exploration type games. It's one of the reasons that I'm going to come out probably stronger on Starfield than some of the people on this panel. But, yeah, it's the exact kind of game that you're thinking of if you think it's an indie type game with a cinematic quality that is exploring psychological damage in a metaphor underwater in submarine exploration, right? So it's that kind of flavor. If that sounds good to you, I think it accomplishes that so far.
Okay. Which
if that
shockingly,
sounds lame, if that sounds like, it's pretentious, you'll probably find that you continue with that thought.
I was going to say, which shockingly, if you beat Returnal, you know that was a core theme of Returnal of all games.
No, it's got a lot of Returnal feel to it because it's like, I wonder if there's a car accident here. But,
yeah. Dan, you play anything good? So Dan is the one member of the panel not playing Starfield. I think he may be one of the few people apparently on the planet not playing Starfield. Yes. All puns aside. But what have you been playing, sir?
Baldur's Gate 3.
Okay, you're still on that train after you over 200 hours now?
Easy.
A lot of my friends are finishing that game before they pick up Starfield, mostly because the average person doesn't want to pay $100 to play the game like 4 days early. So we're hardcore.
Well, it does include the expansion too.
It's not
just
it's $100.
It is $100, no doubt.
Yeah.
No doubt.
No, but I paid $70 twice for Baldur's Gate 3. So I mean, there's it's not a money thing. It's just like a time thing.
It's a money thing. You're poor. It's fine. Just say it.
Shit.
Own it.
I wish I
own it.
All right. But
you see the wash rags behind you. We know what you're really up to.
This is why I'm not poor.
Yeah.
All right. So I've been playing Baldur's Gate 3 quite a bit. Played it on the Steam Deck, unfortunately. Huge mistake because I don't have a PC, because I don't ever use a PC except for, actually I have a gaming PC, but my son uses it all the time. So I was like, I'll just hook up the Steam Deck, dock it, put it on my big screen. Not great, but okay, enough to play Baldur's Gate 3. And then played through that one whole time, started my second playthrough, and it is completely different than my first playthrough. Finding stuff that I didn't find through the first playthrough, a lot of stuff, and missing stuff that I did find in my first playthrough, which is crazy. But I got it for the PlayStation yesterday, I think it's when it came out, and it's much, much better. It's mostly 60 until you start getting into like a bigger city. Then you start kind of seeing some dips. And when the more crowded, the more things going on, it's definitely not fully optimized for the PlayStation. Now, at 30, in quality mode or whatever, it runs fine, pretty much locked in. But it's way better than the Steam Deck, and I'm having a really good time.
Well, sure.
So, yeah.
So, I don't know how you were doing that.
Yeah, it was rough. It was rough. I'm never doing that again. I literally had to make a Steam account for just that game because of how all the Steam accounts work in my house. Like my son took over mine, and then I can't play if you're playing on it. You can't play 2 different places. Yeah. So I just made I literally have one game on my Steam account, and that is Baldur's Gate 3. So, but if you like that kind of stuff, I think it's fantastic. I think it's going to be up to this point my game of the year. I haven't played Starfield. I haven't played Spider-Man 2 yet, so I can't speak on it. But
this guy's still really banking on Spider-Man 2 being game of the year.
No. I don't think it's good. I don't see for me.
Yeah, he's a Spider-Man.
No,
fanatic.
It's not gonna. I don't think it's gonna win game of the year for anything else. I mean, not this year. I mean, no, there's no chance. Like in the broad spectrum, for me, I'm a humongous Spider-Man fan, so it's gonna be probably one of my favorite games of the year. With that being said, I'm not sure it will overtake the same enjoyment that I'm getting out of Baldur's Gate 3. And that's saying quite a bit because, I love the first Spider-Man game and the Miles Morales game. So even if it's more of the same, which I'm sure people will complain about, it's the same map, it's the same city. Don't be a dumbass. Like if you say it, you just unfollow me because I don't need that kind of stupid negativity. It's like comparing, 2 different sites and reviewers giving different scores to different things. It's a stupid comment. So, but with that being said, I really don't think, and again, I'm going to play Starfield too. So I don't know where that'll land, but with Bethesda games generally, Skyrim, Fallout 4, I usually wait a few weeks, kind of let everything get settled and then jump in. and that's just kind of how I've always been.
I'd say this is the first time, in my experience, you don't really have to do that. At least in my experience,
is strong.
It's less about that than more about just I don't know. It's just there's always a talk around the game, and it's always kind of annoying the discourse. So I just kind of try to once that all clears out, I can just kind of go into it and play it. Plus, I don't know if I'm gonna get Game Pass or if I'll get. It all depends on what I want to do.
I like the discourse is annoying on a game talk show.
Super annoying. Yep, Dan, always right on the ball there.
I mean, it is.
No, it's not wrong. I just
it is annoying.
It's
aspects of the discourse are annoying for sure, but yeah, we as we said, we expected that. Well, you should have expected it. So
I expected
anyway.
Yeah.
I expected it. Oh man, actually, I'll be honest. I thought it was going to be worse than it was, but then again, I also kind of expected the scores to be a little lower than they were, which we can get to talking about.
Yeah, I mean, we might as well lead into it now. There's nothing else I've been playing other than Halo, the usual. So not worth talking about that. No, just I won't get into it. But you guys know this week has not been pleasant for me. So so I've really played nothing but Starfield, so we might as well get into it. So we've got a lot of conversation to have about this. So I don't want to start with the reviews, actually. I'll come to those in a bit here, but let's start with just current thoughts on the game. And Hogue, I'll start with you because obviously Travis has a lot more time in it. So Travis, I figured Hogue and I can give our thoughts on it. Dan can obviously ask questions about it they may be curious about, and then you can kind of give your perspective as well, Travis. So Hogue, hit us up because I know you've been enjoying it by all accounts.
Yeah, I mean, well, one thing I would point out, and the reason I prompted Travis to talk about this when we were doing our introductions, is that I've basically played the other half of Starfield to Travis. So if you think of Starfield as a Bethesda story RPG on top of a kind of light No Man's Sky, light privateer, whatever you're looking for in the star combat genre, then it's got these kind of very directed story beats and characters and things you expect from a Bethesda RPG. And then it's got these more generic, systematic gameplay elements. And Travis played more of the systems, and I've played more of the stories. I've basically only done main stories and faction stories. And you pop into Starfield, and I've been so impressed by the level of storytelling from Bethesda, which I know they've put volume in before, but I don't consider Skyrim to be terribly awesome storytelling. Starfield has a better, more subtle touch, I think, than I've seen in Bethesda in the past. And it gives you that feeling that I think a lot of people liked in Skyrim of anything could be around the corner, and what's around the corner might be a 17 quest chain that takes you into all the various nooks and crannies of a city or a planet or a star system. And you can just do that until you get tired of it. I mean, I've got 25 missions in my current mission thing, and half of them are main missions and half of them are faction missions. And then even the ones that are just labeled as miscellaneous
or activities.
I wound up playing for 7 hours yesterday. So you can just really get lost in this world in a way that I think is what most people playing a Bethesda RPG are looking for. And then to me, going into Travis Land and building an outpost or piracy or anything else is just kind of this really cool icing on the cake. It's this whole other layered experience that doesn't require you to have those character interactions or follow those storylines or plot beats, but still exists within the, I'll say, simulation. I think part of the reason you've got some negative reviews on this game is that it's not really a simulation.
It's not.
But it has all those aspects, and so I've really been enjoying it. Now, I'd give it probably like a 9 out of 10 because I think it makes some choices that work for me, but not perfectly. There are things that they could fix in little ways. The biggest item here, and we texted about it a little when the game came out, is I didn't read the reviews. I read like the summaries of some of them, and I kind of participated a little bit in the commentary online, but I didn't want to know a ton about this game. And the first thing that really occurs to you is that they're avoiding maps, not star maps. They have a star map, but they're avoiding maps of your location, right? And I think that the reasoning behind this is to avoid what I tend to call GPS tunneling, right? I used a GPS to get to my office that I worked at for 13 years because I just never got used to the roads that went to my office, because that's just how you can do it with the GPS now. And so they're avoiding the more directed, here's a mini map, here's a dot, here's something that pops up on your screen. You can still pull some of that stuff up, but not a lot of it. And you learn the geography of the places a little bit better. But I think there are some things that they could tweak about that system. I would allow people to find a store. I would allow people to find a specific person. And they get around this by giving you missions that have you go into specific places, and then you learn where those entrances are. You learn how to get there if you're paying enough attention. But that usually only works about one time. And if that sounds like it's distracting or finicky to you, it definitely will be for the first couple hours as you kind of get used to what they're even going for. Because you will look for that map button a lot when you first start out. Because if you're anybody like me who plays Diablo with a constant brown line on his mini map and is basically just picking places and then following that line, it's a wildly different experience to play Starfield. Now, I do think you get into the geography. I like it ultimately, but I think you could fix a few little aspects of it and make it stronger.
I don't know about you, but I've hit the the old select button or the back button and gone to third person by accident about 50 times because it's just habit, right, to hit that button and pull up a map. But I also agree. I think they could have. I think you said it well. They could have done something, not necessarily a map like a Ubisoft map is known for with million icons and everything else, but you could have given a little more guidance there. That said, I tend to lean, as you guys know, and I've talked about many times, I tend to lean in the area of leave me alone and let me go enjoy your world. And I think Starfield does that very well.
Well, it's built that way. I mean, when people say you could just turn off the Ubisoft maps and things, that never really works because you can't get really good directions to where you're going. All of the quests in Starfield that I've noted that have you go someplace are always go up the stairs to your left and look at the tree and go towards the pink sign and whatever it is that you'd get in real life. I just
landmarks.
think you could add little map elements. I think, for instance, the fact that New Atlantis is this gigantic space and doesn't have what amounts to mall you are here sticker things is not realistic for what that city would be. And so I think you could have that and still be landmark learning your navigation, but also get oriented a bit around where in the world is Reliant Medical. You give me a whole district, you know?
Yeah. So someone asked, so how do you navigate in the game? So primarily, you activate whatever quest that you're memory combined with the active quest does have a waypoint. And when you push the left bumper, if you're playing on a controller, if you push the left bumper, it's like scans the environment basically. And depending on what mission you have selected, it will give you a guided path on how to get there. It's not the best. Sometimes it gets kind of lost in itself. But that's primarily how you do it.
Especially once you don't have missions, you have to remember things like which planet Neon is on if you don't have any quests related to it, or if you don't remember any quests that are on it. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I remember where all of the major planets are because it forces you to do it, but it is not a pleasant experience when you're like, dude, I just want to get to Neon so I can go to the Stroud-Eklund ship manufacturer, and then you're like, where is that planet? Like, why can I not find this? It's a very frustrating, and that's one of the main kind of complaints a lot of people on the IGN team had, is that like I think it's going to be different for players because players can now Google stuff. We did not have that in the review period, and if you don't have the ability to Google things, you just have to figure it out, and it's often not very easy to do that. So just know you guys have it easy.
I think once you realize what they're doing with their quest lines, you pay a little bit more attention, right? Like, oh, you're introducing me to the Well. Right. There's another city underneath New Atlantis called the Well. I mean, it's got shops and everything. And there's a nondescript elevator that takes you down there that you get if you're on a specific quest line. You get told how to get to the Well. But if you're not.
Yeah. If you just need to get to the Well, if you need to get to the Well to sell to the Trade Authority, which is located down there, like, good luck, man. I hope you remember where that is, because
it's so funny because I was just trying to do that. I was like, all right, there's an elevator around here somewhere.
Exactly.
I found it by accident through some other door. There's another way to get there. I found it by accident. There are a few ways
to get to the Well, but it's like if you don't have a specific quest that leads you there and you just need to get down there for some reason, it's pretty tough. The same is true for like places that should be easy. Like I have an apartment in New Atlantis, and it took me a long time to find that place after the first time I visited it because I didn't make a note of where it was. And then I was like, oh my God, I don't know where my own house is. And so I was looking around the world going, where is my house? There's no waypoint that leads you to your house after you've done the mission to enter it. As soon as you go through the front door, you better remember everything about where that house is because you could lose your house. Like it took me a long time to find it again.
A lot of ways this system work is kind of jury rigged. Like you'll note if you leave if you tell one of your crewmates to stay somewhere, you'll get an automatic mission to go recover your crewmate from wherever you left them. So they have this kind of system where they understand you're going to need to know places on occasion. And I think that they just needs a tab that's like important places. Maybe capital cities, and then in those cities, stores. Like, what do I want? I want to be able to sell my stuff. So I go to Jameson Mercantile. That's great. I know where that is now. And I know these various places, and that's cool.
I don't buy stolen goods or contraband. What's the point, Hogue?
I'm not running contraband, man.
Well, that's because you haven't learned the joy of selling harvested organs yet. Okay? Because that's how you make bank, Hogue. You want to make money, you sell harvested organs.
Let me ask you guys something. You guys were talking about it. How is the third person, like, generally?
It's good.
Pretty good, actually.
Okay. It's good. That's probably where I'll play. I was wondering. I haven't really seen a whole lot of discussion about that online, so I was kind of wondering.
I wear a suit and carry an axe. It's great.
I play in first, but no, you can switch between two different third-person perspectives in real time, and it's actually very smooth. It works well.
It is. I will say this about third person: prepare to see your character with dead eyes a lot. It's very uncomfortable.
Yeah,
you get out of a chair and your character's like. Just completely dead in the eyes, and you're like, bro, is my guy a serial killer? Because that is an
it's weird, Travis. That seems to only be your character, so I wonder if that's just fitting.
It's really weird. It's like they know me. It's like they know me. Yeah, that's why I role played it. As soon as I saw my character's eyes, I was like, well, now I got to RP this. I got to RP the lack of empathy in those eyes.
You're just you're Dexter in Starfield.
Yeah, exactly.
I think one of the things Hogue touched on is the most important thing to me, and I think that's why you see such varying opinions on this game. From this is, already one of my favorite games, and 10 out of 10, all the way down to, man, this game doesn't meet any of my expectations. Is that this game is expectations are key, first of all, in this game. And I think that for me coming into this game, all I wanted out of it is a big Bethesda RPG to get lost in. That's it. Like, that's my only expectation. I've never felt like, I know people put Skyrim on a pedestal, or some people do for Oblivion. I know Travis and I have talked about Morrowind being our favorite. But like Skyrim for me, fantastic game, great big world. You get lost in, do whatever. It was never about storytelling to me. It was never about, because I don't think it does that well, to be honest.
I mean, storytelling.
Weirdly, Starfield, it's one of its strengths.
Right.
Problems. Yeah.
So, I mean, Skyrim doesn't do narrative, but that's a little different than storytelling. Being put in that world and feeling like doing stuff is storytelling.
That's true. Yeah. So narrative would probably be a better word. That's fair, Hogue. But my point being is that, like, that's not personally, again, expectations, right? It's not why I play these games. I play these games to go in, to Travis's point, and just get lost. Like, I'll search every corner, and I'll start, lockpicking into people's apartments, and I'll steal all their stuff. And then, I love pickpocketing of people and just finding all kinds of weird things to get into. Yeah, just,
dude.
Just
I'm
like
I'm the most dangerous guy in the galaxy, Hogue. You should see my character. Sarah Morgan left my party 170 hours ago. She was very upset with some decisions I made, and I do not miss her. I do not miss that space Karen.
Sarah is great.
Sarah's hot. Sarah's hot. Shut up.
She sucks.
Shut up.
She's the worst character in the game. You guys don't know yet. You have not played the game, but trust me, eventually you're going to be like,
you talk bad about Sarah.
Sarah Morgan kind of sucks. You're going to get there. Trust me, because every time you do anything in the game, she runs up to you and lectures you. Even if you did the right thing, she lectures you.
The things you're doing, Travis.
No, dude, it's so bad. It's like literally you'll make a really tough decision where both options were bad, and she'll criticize you for whichever one you did. It does not matter. It's very odd. Dude, like, she's just such a Karen, dude. She definitely calls the cops on barbecues. That's for sure.
I said in our Bitcast chat, I don't know, the other day that Sarah's hot just jokingly, and Travis went on a rant about how bad Sarah is.
Sarah Morgan. I hate her. I hate her so much. She's the most annoying NPC they've ever put into a Bethesda game.
Oh,
she's so
she
annoying.
is not as bad as the dude with the cowboy hat in Fallout 4.
I don't remember that person, so maybe
that's fair.
more about that person.
Well,
but I would rather not remember somebody than remember Sarah Morgan. She is, and the fact that everybody's swooning over her because they make her like the default. I'm lazy and don't have any, like I don't have any kind of agency, so I'm just going to end up with this person. It's like the high school girlfriend you got pregnant, so you got to marry her for the kid. I like everybody's just with Sarah Morgan, and I'm like, don't do it. Like. I'm like the friend who's just like, don't do it, man. Like, this isn't going to work out for you.
I already regret bringing this up. I already regret bringing this up.
She sucks.
Dan, what were you going to say?
No, I can't remember the guy's name. I remember the guy that kept giving you the same mission. Preston.
Yeah. Oh, Preston. I know who you're talking about. Yeah.
Who's the first
guy? I mean, that guy's kind of uninteresting, but at least he doesn't judge you for everything you do and then force you to it's so I hate it. I'm so glad he's gone. I'm so glad I killed her and all of you.
So what's up, Eric? Good to see Eric in the chat. He said, is Sarah Morgan the girl who peaked in high school? But no, it's funny you say
talk when you have a chance. We really need to talk. I can't believe you did that. Why would you do this to me? Oh my God, Sarah. Seriously, Sarah. God,
you sound like
NIMBY. All right,
you sounded like me in Skyrim. There's a point in Skyrim, I forget, it's been years, so I forget what it was, but I got someone that was just a follower. Like, they became my follower, not the adoring fan, but someone who was always with me, and I don't like that. And I couldn't get rid of her, so I just sacrificed her. Done, killed her, dead.
Do it.
Like, leave me alone.
Regardless of Travis's feelings on Sarah's contribution, I do think it's worth pointing out that Bethesda has made improvements on some of this stuff. Sarah can interject in conversations, and the person you're talking to can react to that interjection. Yep. There's some really cool things that they do with the interactivity.
Yes, that's true.
Sarah Morgan dislike that is burned into my retinas. I cannot deal with it. Anyway,
I don't think I have a single Sarah Morgan dislike that.
Dude, you will. Oh, she's so judgmental.
You have to change the thumbnail, Lanes.
I know, right? He's killing it. But I do like too that you can pick the follower with you too. So sometimes I have Vasco, even though Vasco just kind of runs clunkily all over the place. It does make me laugh, just having him around.
Vasco, I have to be in stealth better than Vasco can pull off.
Yes, I know. But anyway, for me, in terms of expectations, that's where I'm at. I'm about 20 hours in. I'm really enjoying just getting lost. It's delivering that in the sense of, I can tell, to Travis's point, very clearly you're going to be able, like most of these Bethesda big RPGs, to put hundreds and hundreds of hours in this game, to have experiences that may be different from one another, because there's so many vastly different things that you can just kind of discover and fall into. One of the things I'm really appreciating is the kind of dynamic nature of some of the interactions. So, if you just happen to be in a bar, I was in the bar and someone's over talking and it's like, oh, you overheard this and you can go check this out. And, things just kind of pop up where it's like, if you want to go check this out, this could lead to something, to Hoag's point. And some of those things are rabbit holes. You'll just suddenly find yourself in another planet, in a building with things you never even expected or thought about. But I think it's really neat that those things just kind of are all over the place and completely random and pop up. And it's really neat. I like it.
Yeah. And my tilt is towards science fiction. So they did a good job of making it a science fiction world, right? New Atlantis feels like the Citadel did when you visit it in Mass Effect. They have fully kind of thought through brand names and company stylings, and then your items have those labeling bits from those various companies, and all these things go together in a way that I haven't played in a long time. So it's a lot of fun. If you're looking to get immersed into something, Starfield, I think, pulls that off. The fact that it doesn't have a map that you're expecting and some other things in the UI. I know Travis hates encumbrance. Certainly,
it makes the immersion a little annoying at times in a lot of ways. Yeah,
they don't want you to be a junk collector, and so you have to kind of make certain choices about what you pick up.
I learned that very quickly, to Travis's point, because I'm one of those who's like, oh wait, that's worth $15. Yeah, I'm taking that with me. And then like it took like 2 hours, and I'm like, oh crap, I've got way too much stuff.
It's not just junk collection, by the way, Hogue. Like, the game presents a fantasy of like you grabbing resources and putting it on your ship, and maybe you haven't experienced this yet, but you will. And then it gets every system in place to make that as irritating as possible. Like the fact that if you grab a minerals are like the heaviest material ever created, and you can only carry like 30 of them, and then you have to run back to your ship, and then your ship by default can only carry so much of those things. Like, you fill up real quick if you try to get into like the crafting game or the settlement building game, and they don't really have a lot of satisfactory options, especially at the beginning of the game. But I can get into that when I start my diatribe. But just a lot of stuff where they like expect certain things of you, and then they make that thing as annoying as possible. That's one of my big critiques about the game.
Yeah, and I think, to your point, I think how much those types of things and I won't call them nitpicks, but those types of aspects, how much those bother you, can impact your enjoyment of this game. Because for me, dealing with encumbrance, sorting through items, and you're right, I've already filled my ship, right? I've filled my followers at times. It can be a little annoying, but it doesn't really bother me. It doesn't detract from my experience for whatever reason. And this is maybe a me thing, I don't know. But in a giant RPG like this, where you're able to pick up anything, right, and take it with you, I kind of expect that, and I don't mind dealing with that, because I know that I could just ignore it all if I want to. To your point, some of the systems rely on you doing some of those things, so that's a little counterproductive. Yeah. But generally speaking, I think how much those types of things bother you, like if you're someone who doesn't like to deal with menus and sorting through stuff, you have to play this game differently. And the menus being
bad, by the way, especially the inventory menus. There's no compare or transfer system where you have to go to separate tabs, which like the Fallout games had already solved that, where you could see both item lists. You can see both item lists alongside each other. That's like a basic feature that they didn't.
Yeah, but I mean,
it's insane. It's crazy they didn't do that.
But it's instant.
They already had a solution.
It's instant switch.
Yeah, but you have to go to each list to see what's there. Like, why wouldn't they just put a compare transfer list? They've done that in other games. It's very puzzling design in some of the areas where I'm just like, what?
There are some weird UI things. I would say, for me, if we want to talk about things that kind of miss for me out of the gate, it's I would say the map we already talked about, right, or the aspects of navigation. Some of the UI clunkiness is definitely present. The one thing that, and this, maybe I'm alone on this, but it's starting to creep in to the back of my head, right at the back, is at the end of the day, this is going to sound weird, but at the end of the day, it's not an open world game.
It's not.
And for the scope that the game is presenting, and the scope is massive, and I'm not complaining it's not open world, but I don't know how to explain it. There is an aspect of it where, like in Morrowind, for example, I love just walking across the damn place and finding whatever I want to find, right? Whereas this is very clearly broken up. New Atlantis is huge. There are hubs that are massive. But when you're going planet to planet, you're going city to city, you're even going to places within New Atlantis, because you have to take the little monorail thing to get the different aspects of it. It's broken up. And it feels to me, it's creeping in the back of my mind. Like, I'm not saying they could have done it because you're going to a million planets, right? But it's I don't know. It feels a little different in that vein.
I asked you guys something about like expectations. So a lot of these, before it came out, people were comparing it to maybe like No Man's Sky with RPG, with Bethesda RPG elements. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of what I expected, probably up until maybe a month or two back, where we kind of started seeing it was a bit, I don't want to say smaller scope, but like it wasn't going to be that. So how is, I guess, because for me, like, I'm kind of in the same boat as Hogue. I like the sci-fi aspect of these things. I really enjoyed No Man's Sky. The biggest problem I had with it was there was literally like no direction. Like, it was just go out, do whatever you want to do. Right. There were some story things, and they've added stuff since, but even after their first big update, after it kind of launched in shambles, even after the first big update, it was, it was still like, I'm really not 100% sure where I'm going and what I'm supposed to be doing. And it's really kind of obtuse in how they explain it to you. But I do love the ship combat. I do love being able to just basically, jump to, this other planet real quick. It takes a couple minutes or whatever, or maybe a minute, 30 seconds, I don't know, whatever it is. Land on the planet. I know you can't do any of that stuff. Is for somebody like me that's going to have that had those expectations. Obviously, I should temper them, but like, how is the whole space combat, traveling, stuff like that?
They're isolated, right? So the space combat is good, but it's in a space box, and then you say, I want to go to the planet, and then you get a load screen, and you're on the planet.
Okay.
Right. One of the things I would tweak about Starfield, and they do this in a couple of places, is you have a load screen. That's fine. That's the game that you built. I would have more of those transition animations, a little bit more. They do this when you dock with ships, where they, instead of just a black load screen, they put up a docking video. Mm-hmm. I would do more of that for landing and takeoffs. I would have more of that, especially for the capital cities. But it doesn't really bother me. They clearly have made certain choices about making it easier for you. I know that the UI isn't Travis's favorite, but there are buttons that you can hit that take you straight to your cockpit. There are buttons that you can hit that take you straight to the planet. Some of that is jarring when you're trying to have an open world kind of immersive experience, because you'll be hovering around a random planet in the far corner of the galaxy. And if you hit the right sequence of buttons, you can essentially just have a load screen, and then you're standing in front of the main administrative building in the capital of the United Colonies. And that's for your enjoyment. Like that could have been a longer process, but I tend to take the things that are more immersive. I will tend to hit the sequence of buttons that lets me get the video that has my ship traveling to the next system and that kind of thing before I warp to a space where I'm standing. Travis is looking slyly at me.
I think that will go away soon. Like after a long time, all right, I just want to.
Travis was like, yes, try that at hour 200, but it's
exactly, yeah.
I think that Dan, to your question, I honestly think, based on the way you just described it, you'll actually like this more, because No Man's Sky kind of forces you through the navigation between planets and outside. Well, I haven't played No Man's Sky in a while, but if we're comparing, the initial experience of No Man's Sky, whereas this, to Hoag's point, if you don't want to worry about walking into your cockpit and sitting down and then taking off on the planet and navigating, you can literally just fast travel. So if you say
from the ground,
you can just go like, I'm going to go to this planet, and then my next mission or whatever you're doing, your activity, right, is over on this planet over here. You can go to the star map,
and then you're encumbered. You can't fast travel. What are you trying to do?
But you can just fast travel right to it, and it'll show you, to Hoag's point, it'll show your ship taking off, boom, and you're there.
Now get ready to run 10 kilometers. 10 kilometers.
So we're just talking about little tweaks here, right? Because I've said it's a 9 out of 10. I love this game. But yeah, I would have more transition load screens. I think you could have a little bit more mapping help. I think they need a tab that lets you pick something to just aim your line at. And I would have a space car, a space vehicle of some kind. These distances are far.
That's the other thing. So I think either they're going to add that, or mods will certainly add that. But yeah, so when you do land on a planet, no matter the planet, there's different icons and things you can go search out and look for, right? And usually old bases or plants to scan, that type of thing. But yeah, you're walking. And I think that feels like a miss. It hasn't driven me crazy, but it's definitely noticeable.
Well, what's funny about that, right, is there was a small controversy before we could all talk about it at all about like hitting the boundaries. Like I have no idea where those boundaries are, but I've already kind of run until I've run out of oxygen, and I'm still halfway to wherever it is I'm trying to get to from where I landed. So it's like those borders are not anything you're actually going to mess with in a gameplay environment, I don't think. No,
I spent multiple hours yesterday on one planet, just going icon to icon and looking through caves and, just exploring for the heck of it, because that's what I like to do. So, no, I think that was definitely made a bigger deal out of than it should have been.
Did you think it was a super productive use of your time doing the random planet stuff, going into caves and stuff?
Yeah, I like min-max, Travis, but if you're not min-maxing, I mean, I think it's fun to get to the mission board and get a planet survey, and that's what I did. What was one of the first things I took, and I found a dinosaur planet, and I built an outpost there, and that was fun. But no, is it a good use of my resources? Probably not.
I don't mean like min-maxing, like One of my problems with the kind of I guess when Skyrim they were called like radiant quests, or what were they called? Ambient quests? I can't remember what they're called.
I don't remember.
The ones that you can just generate infinitely. I think Starfield's solution to that, like their answer to it, is, hey, you can generate an infinite number of nodes on planets. You can have up to 4 at a time, and then you can just basically put down somewhere, and it'll generate like a randomly generated node that you can travel within a large bubble of. And then it puts like points of interest on the map. And my problem is a lot of those points of interest, you'll go to it, it'll be like abandoned factory, and you go there and there'll be like 4 pirates you fight, and then there'll be like a bunch of like random like cups and notepads and like maybe a helmet, right? And that's it. There's no like unique loot or like story. Like they had talked about in the direct about having like environmental storytelling where like you show up and like you find out like a thing that happened to this area. And there's very little of that. There's like maybe 1 or 2 times I could think of that. Most of the time there's some for sure, but most of the time it's like a cave with like a dung pile that's got a little bit of ammo and minerals in it, and then like maybe like 2 creatures that don't attack you unless you attack them first, and then that's it. And it's just like you sort of wandering around and you're like, a lot of this feels really underwhelming. Like you just kind of land on a planet, there's nothing there.
How is it really generated stuff then? Like is it reused a lot?
Some of it, yeah. You can find the exact same nodes again. Another interesting thing is if you find a room that you've seen before, because a lot of the buildings are like rooms that are stitched together, every room will have items in identical locations and the identical items too. So you'll be like, oh,
to another.
Yeah, you'll be like, oh, that table, I know this table before. It's got all the same objects on it in the same order, and like you'll start to notice like reused kind of stuff put together, which isn't abnormal in a procedurally generated game, but it does feel like pretty.
It's not a real universe. Yes.
Yeah. Basically, I didn't. So am I getting to the point now where I can talk about my experience?
Well, I think what you're touching on more broadly, right, is this is where expectations come into play again, right? I would think that if someone expected to go to every planet and find unique things, their expectations were wrong.
Well, I wouldn't say unique things, but I would say interesting things. And I think that is a fair criticism, that it's not interesting to do the planet exploration. It's actually quite boring.
I wouldn't say all. Like, so last night I was playing and I landed on a planet which happened to be, I found this gigantic house in, right? And I go in there and I start exploring and there's pirates in there, but I happen to be right now, and no spoilers, but I happen to be doing a quest line where I'm associating with the pirates, right? So instead of attacking them and them attacking me, they were like, oh, good to see you, and they were super friendly, and so I found like a ridiculous amount of loot and money and all this stuff because it was this house that these pirates were raiding, but I was looked at as part of their raiding party, right? And I just did that randomly landing on a planet, so that's very, very cool to me.
Yeah, that stuff that happened that actually might end up annoying you if you don't finish that quest line and pick a side, because I picked the side of the Crimson Fleet. I'm like the leader of the Crimson Fleet now, and then I went back and started doing like main stories. And anytime you do a main story that involves the Crimson Fleet, you walk in the room, they're like, "Hey, boss." And so you have like a lot of missions that are like walk through dungeon, enemies don't attack you, get the item you need at the very end of the dungeon, and then leave. And it makes it very weird and anticlimactic because you're like, all right, this is very clearly supposed to be like a big dungeon delver. I'm fighting things, and the guys are like,
but I like that.
Does SysDef really think we're intimidated? And you're like, dude, what? Yeah, but it doesn't make sense in story because like a character will be like,
yes,
oh my god. No. Like you haven't heard the example yet. So like,
sorry.
Like, oh my god, this person's like in trouble. They're getting kidnapped. Like you need to go and save it before the pirates get it. And then you'll walk past all that stuff and then grab the thing and leave. And the pirates don't comment on it. And it's just like, dude, they were attacking this place and I just showed up and like walked by them and grabbed the thing and left. And you don't get that story beat at all. It just doesn't, because you're supposed to kill them, right, in the normal path. And so,
of course,
I kind of wish one of my criticisms about that is, sometimes your decisions that you want to make can screw over your experience with like the main stories and beats of the game. And I think that they should have used the generic spacers that are not allied with the Crimson Fleet for more of those missions, because it legitimately ruins some of the encounters when you show up and you're like, oh man, it's the Crimson Fleet here. These are my friends. And then you just walk through the encounter and you don't get to experience that. Like one of the random things you can encounter is like a ship where the gravity is broken and it keeps turning off and on, and you keep going from gravity to zero grav while you're on the ship, and it's supposed to be like this really cool dynamic shoot, like, oh no, I'm in 0G. And I went and it was Crimson Fleet, and I was like, all right, guess I'm gonna walk through the ship while I keep going in and out of 0G as I slowly like grab all the loot and then leave. And I just, yeah, that sort of stuff feels like a little wonky to me when they could have easily used the Ecliptic Mercenaries or Spacers for that, so that everybody can experience that without just being like, oh, I guess I just don't get to experience this side quest because of a decision I made in the game.
It feels
a lot.
I mean, one of the cool parts about the faction quests and the other quests indeed at the same time is that you can get this feeling like you're actually operating in the universe and you're changing things a little bit. You said you had an apartment in New Atlantis, which means you became a UC citizen at some point, and that's cool. And I think when you're weighing those things against the main story, one, I don't think most people are going to play it in reverse like you did, Travis, which is do everything but the main story and then main story.
I think lots of people do all the other stuff and then save the main story for the end, which, by the way, I would not recommend for this game. I actually do think like the main story locks significant stuff, including like abilities and talents and stuff that you can't normally get. So I would say do the main story alongside the other stuff. But I do think a lot of people, I mean, that's how I've approached like the vast majority of my open world games, is I try to do everything, because I know if I do the main story first, I lose some motivation to keep exploring the world. So I try to save it for the end. I don't know if that's just me.
I mean, I think in Bethesda games, it's just, I've always thought of the main story as kind of the weaker elements.
Yeah, you get it out of the way early.
Skyrim, so you just roll through, you yell at some dragons, and then you do the vampire quest that you wanted to do. But are
the enemies level like level?
Yeah, they have levels.
Okay. So
yeah, you can find, like, I ran into a level 15, a group of level 15 starships when I was like a 2, and they obliterated me. Yeah,
not great.
But I like that. See, I like that because it meant I explored somewhere that I shouldn't have been exploring, and I'll come back to it.
I've been eaten by dinosaurs a number of times.
See, that's awesome. I love that. But I think, sorry, Hogue, you were going to make a point, then I'll make mine.
No. I mean, the point is basically, I think it's a good thing that the Bethesda quest lines in this game in particular feel like you're actually doing something interesting, right? If you become somebody high up in the Crimson Fleet, that feels worthwhile in doing. That it has these negative ramifications, I don't think is great. And I understand that your corrective is to have one of the other groups be there. I think that makes a lot of sense.
For some of them, for some of the major stuff where because some of it, it's not like, oh, this is cool, it changed the encounter because of a decision I made. It feels very unplanned. Like they didn't think about it, because you're like, oh no, like this is clearly not in one example, it actually broke the quest. I couldn't finish it because I couldn't talk to the person at the end of the thing that I'd done because I hadn't cleared out all the pirates, and I couldn't without betraying them and getting a bounty on my head. You get bounties with the Crimson Fleet, which seems crazy to me. Like, really? They have a legal system? They have you pay the fine or go to jail in the Crimson Fleet? That seems weird.
They said they're the organized faction.
You're talking to Hogue Law, bounty hunter, remember?
That's true. Yeah. But yeah, it's just in some cases it feels like not interesting and sort of like unplanned, like they didn't think about what would happen if you did this.
So let me ask this. One of the things I love about these games, and you're touching on it to a degree, and it's one of the conversations I wanted to have today, was Bethesda RPGs. I would say more so than maybe any other games out there. I don't know. That's arguable, I guess. Like something like Baldur's Gate 3, but they allow you to manipulate the world as you see fit, right? And that comes with a lot of consequences, right, within the world. And to your point, Travis, you just called out a good example, which is, okay, so I chose to be pirate, I chose to lead the Crimson Fleet, and therefore there are now missions where you typically would be fighting the Crimson Fleet, and you're not, obviously, right? Mm-hmm. I do see your point around that could be annoying, because it's like, it feels like this experience here was crafted for me to experience one way, but because of the decision I made, I'm now not experiencing it that way. So I get that point. But I would say the counter to that is, in a game that allows you so much ambiguity or kind of freedom in how you approach things, right? And allows you to make those decisions, and kind of the pieces surrounding within the world don't adjust in real time. I would say there's situations that I like about that, right? Like, I like the fact that if I go kill the governor of a city, I don't even know what will happen. I'm going to find out. But I like the fact that, because what that means to me is, one, the world, as much as it can, right? These games are not infinite in the sense of it can't adjust to every decision that every 50 million players are going to make. That's just impossible. One. Two, I would argue that it also adds a lot of replayability, and that's what makes these games last for the years and years and years they get played, is because when I play Starfield and go back to it 4 years from now, right, I may play it completely different and my experience will be completely different. I think that if the game always adjusted to, or narrowed the scope to always adjust to whatever you decide, it would narrow the broader picture of what's possible. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I get what you're saying. My problem is in the unplanned nature of it, where it doesn't feel like it's actually reacting to the choices you do. Like, for example, in the mission that broke, right? I walked along the thing and I didn't realize that the pirates in front of me were my allies. It didn't explain that to me. It didn't give me an option to talk to anyone. There's one example where I played a main story quest, and this is a great example where I went through and none of the pirates attacked me, and they made it very clear that it was the Crimson Fleet. And I went, okay, so these are my boys. They're not going to attack me. And when I got to the end, I freed a hostage and I got to talk to the guy, and there was a dialogue option where it said Crimson Fleet. And I was like, yo, I'm your boss. Like, let this guy go. And then I got to let that guy go. And I was like, perfect. That's a great example of my decisions mattering, because the game doesn't let you make a lot of like canon decisions. Like, you can do stuff, but like it only lets you make a couple really big like tentpole, like this is going to affect the universe decisions. Most of the decisions are
Mass Effect model, but the decisions you're making here are that you decided to go do a bunch of quests for the Crimson Fleet, right? Your decision was to do that.
No. The decision for me was you make a decision at the end of that quest line about who you're going to side with, and I chose to side with the Crimson Fleet, and it makes a very clear decision there. And then after you do that, you can make dialogue choices that are like, all right, I made that choice. I think that's cool. My problem is with the ones that don't do that, where they feel like they didn't leave an option for the people who did the weird thing. So I'm actually arguing the opposite of what you're saying, Ains. I'm saying I love that freedom part. I love the unplanned nature of it. I wish the game had planned more for that. Because there's
I get it.
Where it's like, oh, okay, cool. They lean super hard into the decisions that the player makes, and that's awesome. And then there's other times where you're like, oh, they just didn't like think about this eventuality, and it makes you feel like you broke the universe in a way it wasn't supposed to, and it feels really bad. It feels like your decisions aren't actually all that important. You know what I mean? Because I wanted there to be some other outcome.
No, I get exactly what you're saying, and I guess I look at that. Maybe this isn't fair. Maybe I'm being too forgiving, but I usually look at that in these games as collateral damage, meaning that it's an impossibility to account for everything. So I just assume I'm going to break it.
Some things you kind of are going to assume are going to break, but in this case, it was stuff that they had proven that they could do before in other missions, and I was just sort of like, I wish they had given that level of attention to detail to some of the other stuff, because it doesn't feel good to feel like they forgot about you. You know what I mean? Like they forgot about your path in the game, and you're like, that's sort of annoying. But can I talk about my opinions on the game? I've been holding off.
Have you not been?
So I'll tell you what. I've
been commenting on stuff you guys are saying.
Yeah, we've got super chats backing up. Let's get to some of these, and then we'll hit you up, Travis.
Oh, yikes.
This is a member comment.
Oh, yikes. Oh, these guys
pay
money for their comments to be said. Big Bad Mo, member for 8 months. Shout out to the panel. HCS going strong. Starfield has my life. This game is so good. 9.8 for me now, right now, and I haven't even did the story yet. Fire emoji.
Shout out to you, Mo. Yes, HCS is rocking this weekend. I will be doing nothing but HCS and Starfield later today. I'm looking forward to it. HCS is Halo Championship, by the way.
Ramp in my butt right now. I don't know where that came from, but let's go to Don Leinart so I can $10 super chat.
Don paid for that cramp. It was a super chat.
So I can't hear the Starfield talk, but my Constellation Edition was delayed until Tuesday for some reason. Shout out to Bethesda customer service. Sent me a separate code for the game, refunded shipping, and a $25 gift card. That's awesome.
Damn,
great customer service. Hey, where's Bomber? I know Bomber had an issue.
Bomber had a Best Buy Constellation Edition, and they did him real dirty. There's a lot of people who order Constellation Edition, that one there, who got it late. It was supposed to arrive Thursday because early access started Thursday night, and a lot of people are getting them Friday, or like saying they're not going to be delivered till Tuesday because of Labor Day. and it's like it comes with the early access and premium edition, so you've screwed up. So that's really good on Bethesda, though. I'm glad to hear that.
That's good.
Cool.
That's awesome. All right,
Travis, we got story time for you. You ready?
Oh, dang. I did not know. Okay, yeah, sure.
Let's go.
Been on this before.
Let's say this is a time traveling cat who also likes video games. He goes forward in time to, I'm going to say, his own birthday. And then he falls in love. Right. He feels loved in the future on his birthday. That's my story of the time traveling cat.
Fair enough. And by the way, Chris Mullen, he followed that up with a Australian $10 super sticker. Followed that up with a $10 Australian super sticker on both channels. So,
bam!
Yes,
Chris
Mullen,
loves us.
Chris.
We love
you.
Thank you so much. To your birthday, cat.
Yes, happy birthday to you and the love that you have now found.
Wait a minute, hold on, wait a second. Is this your birthday, Ains? Because I'm gonna call out your birthday just because I know you hate it so much.
It's his birthday?
It's not.
It is.
It's not.
It's not. But it is. No, for the purposes of this show. It is his birthday. So happy birthday.
It's not my birthday.
It's coming.
It's not my birthday.
It's in September.
Ains is uncomfortable even with a
happy 57th.
Yeah, 50.
That's huge. That's huge.
Everybody wishes.
Oh man! It really and according to the AI, happy 13th birthday to you, Travis.
Thank you. I'm very excited. I just got my first pubes. I don't know.
All right, move it on. Move it on. Move it on.
Proud Emperor Sofer King with the $2 super chat. Why are people mad? People dare question a reviewer.
Why are people mad? People dare question reviewer.
Yes,
I think that's got to be a question.
Why are people mad?
People are asking why anybody would be mad at I don't think it's about. So I'll talk about this because it's been just an irritation online. I don't think anybody's mad that you're questioning a reviewer. I think it's for me at least a question of people not believing that a reviewer believes the things that they believe. I don't know if anybody could play Starfield and not see how it could not be for somebody, because it's a very specific type of game. I think even if you really love Starfield, there's stuff about it where you go, yeah, it's probably not for everyone. And some of those people probably reviewed the game and they have genuinely held beliefs. And rather than accepting that Starfield isn't a 10 out of 10 for everyone that plays it, people are approaching those reviewers as if it's a conspiracy, as if there's some other reason that they gave it a lower score that is, by the way, a 7 out of 10, which is a recommendation saying, yes, I liked the game and I think you should play it too, but also has some caveats and some stuff that I didn't like. In my case and in the reviewer at IGN's case, I mean, the game was practically made for Dan Stapleton. He loves Bethesda open world RPGs. He loves science fiction. He loves all that stuff. It was made for him. And the reason he didn't like it is because it disappointed him. He did like it, but the reason he didn't like it as much as other people is because it has shortcomings very clearly in a lot of different areas. And clearly those shortcomings mattered to him more than it mattered to other reviewers. And I think that there should be room in the discourse for people to have more moderate opinions on how much they enjoyed a game, and for that to be okay, and for it to not be a fiasco where they have to get attacked and people question if that review was legitimate or if it was paid off or if the person just hates Xbox or what other weird motivations people are foisting onto somebody who wrote the review. If you read the review at all, which I know none of you did because the stuff you guys say is ridiculous to anybody who would have read it, you would know that none of those things are true or in the review. And so he gave very specific reasons for the things that worked for him and the things that didn't work for him as much in Starfield. And I think that 7 out of 10 is a certainly a conclusion that a reasonable mind could come to. And I think Dan Stapleton, the guy who reviewed at IGN, is certainly a reasonable mind. I don't think there's any wrong with differing opinions in this industry, and people who get upset that somebody disagreed with their assessment of a game is
but they didn't play.
That they didn't play. Yeah. By the way, a lot of them didn't play before they had a problem with reviews. Yeah.
And I would say that all I would add is that I'm going to be very generic here. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Like, I hate the fact that a huge chunk of gaming discourse I use very lightly here, over the past few days has been about a review score or scores. It doesn't matter. Like, we talked, so to another big high profile game, we talked on this show about, I think 3 of us, I don't remember where you landed, Dan, but 3 of us not really liking God of War Ragnarok. And having
average.
Okay, so all four of us on this show didn't really enjoy a 94 Metacritic game to the level that it was reviewed. And lots of people gave it 10s. You know what I didn't do? Go out and chase those reviewers who gave it 10s, because it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Yeah. Just play the game, enjoy it. If you think Starfield's a 10, awesome. Play it for hundreds of hours. If you think it's a 2, go play something else. I mean, it just, I wish people would. Yeah, it just, I hate that we spend so much energy and time, and we're doing it right now. So I realize the irony here.
We have to talk about the IGN pushback.
Yeah, and I just wish we spent more time. Like, we could be talking about the game itself. We could be talking about other amazing games that are out right now. We could be talking about studios or developers or projects. There's so many cool things going on in the gaming industry right now. It's one of the best times ever game-wise. Why are we spending so much? Not Hitman 3, please. I'd rather talk about the review. No, I'm kidding. But there's so many other things we could be discussing and spending your time on. Like, just please, for the love of God, just go enjoy your games and talk about the games you enjoy and have fun doing it. That's what this is about. If you're, I don't know, I could go on a rant forever about this. I'll stop.
Yeah. And I just don't want to address some of the comments in the thing, because there's just a lot of, I think, emotion and people having not a lot of information to back up the things they're saying.
Like, I don't agree with Dan's review. I don't agree with it. Yeah. I'm loving Starfield. I'm lost in the game. I don't care what Dan reviewed it. I don't care what anyone. Right. Dan's one person, not this Dan, by the way. But
yeah, you understand how somebody could agree with it, and you believe that he believes it, right? Like, that's my problem with it. Is a lot of people are like acting like there's some other motivation behind the review score, and I'm like, look, he said it's good, not great, and I could see how somebody could come to it. I'm closer to Dan probably than I'm closer to Ains or Hogue on this one. Like, for me, it's probably an 8, right? And I think that's a reasonable score one could give it. But
I think my reaction, and I think the reaction that you'll get from a number of people, is that it really doesn't feel like that level of game. And that can be a part of, the scores have been skewed by years and years of kind of comporting with the American educational system or whatever. But when you play Starfield, or at least when I play Starfield, it is massive in scope and immediately impressive in that scope in a way that I don't think is captured by at least the number Dan gave it. Like I said, I didn't read the review. I wasn't interested in other people's thoughts before I tried it myself. And I'm glad of that, because it's weird idiosyncrasies, which I will grant. I will fully grant that it's weirdly idiosyncratic, and that some people are not going to react well to that, is maybe not captured by a 7 out of 10. And I know numbers are part of this industry and have been for a long time, but I think that the visceral reaction you get from some emotional people on the internet is that it does not feel like a game that is less than.
Yeah. I mean, I agree that some people believe that, right? We had people on the team that were playing early who came in lower than a 7, right? Who were like, yeah, if I were reviewing it, I'd give it a 6. And I think some of those people just had, a bad taste in their mouth. Some of the stuff didn't work for them. They didn't like that game. That's fine. People can have different opinions. Yeah. And I would just ask that people at least accept that those opinions are genuinely held. I don't think anybody is being, told or swayed or leaned on in any way to give a game a lower or a higher score. To address the skewing of reviews, I do agree. The hyperbole that comes along with, if it's not an 8 or higher, it is a shit game, to quote how a lot of people think of it. And if it's 7 or lower, it's you shouldn't play. It's not worth your time. I think it's worth rejecting that hypothesis, because it's a terrible system that doesn't really help consumers or help people evaluate games. I think 7s can be enjoyable, although they have enough issues to warrant them not being an 8, 9, or 10, etc.
I love 7. I'm just telling you from my heart, it doesn't feel like a 7 to me.
Yeah, 100%. And
No,
I
me neither.
can agree that other people could play it and say, I don't think it feels like a 7. To me, I see stuff in the game, and this is somebody who's played the game more than anyone here. So, take that with a little. I have a little bit of authority in that regard, that I could see how somebody could come to the conclusion that it doesn't accomplish a lot of the stuff it tries to accomplish, and that it's good, not great, which is what a 7 means at IGN. And I think what it probably should mean to most people, because it doesn't mean terrible game, don't play it. That's not, I don't think that should ever be what a 7 is interpreted from people who are looking at reviews. But I get how we've gotten here, right? Because if it's not a 9 or 10, people feel like it's not worth their time. I just disagree with that. I just disagree with that philosophy. That's not.
Yeah, no, I get that, but I think in my head, I like a lot of 7s. I've talked about this before.
Yeah.
But 7s are games that have some kind of foundational issue that I'm just ignoring or working through, or it doesn't matter to me. And Starfield has these niggles. It has these choices in UI and things that I might tweak a little bit, but it does not have these foundational issues, in my opinion.
I think it does.
Yeah,
I think some of them are foundational. I think once you get further into the game and you start to see crashes, I would say that's a pretty foundational issue. That this game crashes a lot. Some people's files.
I have 0 crashes, so I can't speak to
that.
that.
Yeah. So you've gotten, and actually, to be clear, I also had 0 crashes my first 50 hours. This is the sort of game where the longer you play, the more unstable it starts to get, which is not new to Bethesda games. That sort of happens, but Ivantis is a great example. He reached a story bug that prevented him from finishing the main story, and he actually had to end up sending his save file to Bethesda and getting them to fix it for him, which normal players won't have access to. But there's stuff like that. Like the game will start to break down, and people experience that. I consider that a foundational issue. I consider the lack of travel to be kind of the idea of traveling, where you're just kind of jumping and loading screens, and how space is instanced and not traveling. I think that's a legit criticism. I think the lack of.
I don't think that's a foundational issue.
I mean, for people who want that out of a space game, it certainly is. And there's lots of games that give you that kind of experience.
You can want a lot of things. That doesn't make it a foundational issue.
I mean, it does if that's something that you consider foundational in a space game, right? Obviously, this is more like Mass Effect, where you're jumping from point to point. But I think a lot of hay was made in the direct about traveling the galaxy and showing you in front of planets and stuff like that. And
they made it very clear that you could not land on the planet yourself. He said that.
No, I'm not talking about that. I'm not talking about landing on the planet yourself. I'm talking about the lack of travel at all, where you jump to a point and you're just sort of in a bubble in front of the planet, and then you can't really go from place to place without fast travel systems. I think some people have a problem with that. Personally, I don't care about that. That's my least favorite part of No Man's Sky, but I get why somebody would be upset with that. Also, the procedurally generated worlds, some people just see that as a big miss. I'm actually one of those people. I spent a lot of time on those procedurally generated worlds, and they get old real quick. They're gorgeous, but they get old real quick, and you run out of stuff to do, and you're sort of just is it just I build an outpost here to gather resources? And pretty much that's what you do in those places. So people have an issue with that. So I get it, right? I'm higher than Dan was. For me, it's an 8, but I could see why somebody would say, dude, this is a 6. And for me, because I just don't like this, and this. And I get it. I get why somebody would say that.
Yeah. I don't know. I think you named some things there, to Hoag's point, that aren't foundational issues. They're things that they're more like expectations that haven't been met for that individual person, which are two different things. But
I think that could be foundational. Right? For example, here's something that a lot of people disregard that's 100% a valid criticism. The combat's not good. Right?
I think the combat is good.
The combat
again.
Combat is at best middling, right?
No.
You're a shooter fan. You put it up against other shooters.
No. Listen, okay. This is expectations again, and this is what I don't like when reviewers do. Is you're taking aspects of the game, specific aspects, right? You jumped from space and traveling through it to now you've jumped over to combat, which is this very specific aspect of a game, and you're comparing it to competitive shooters. You can't take every single aspect of this game.
Competitive shooter.
You just said that to me.
I said shooters. I didn't say competitive shooters. I'm not comparing it to specific ones. But yeah.
If you take the shooting aspect of this game in the realization that it's a Bethesda RPG, it's quite good. If you compare this to Halo, no. But that's not what Bethesda's going for
I
here, right?
I get what you're saying. Is it's not what Bethesda's going for, and maybe that it's not a realistic expectation, but it's still a shortcoming. We can admit that it's a shortcoming.
But it's not. No, it's not.
No, I think
to you because you lowered your expectations so that they could hit that bar.
You raised yours, so it can't be hit.
So you're acting like your position's the default one and mine's the skewed one. We both
No. You literally just agreed with me. No, you literally just agreed with me because we're arguing expectations versus foundational issues. The combat is not a foundational issue. Our expectations are different.
No, it's more than functional.
Okay, go ahead. What were you
No, it's more than functional. But this is one of the problems I have with like a 7 on this is that you parcel it out into these various aspects and say, oh, it's not as good as that. You're missing the scope of the thing, right?
Yes.
Like the thing that's really impressive about Starfield is that you feel like you can do whatever you want for long periods of time, and that's lost when you say, well, yeah, but that whatever thing you want isn't as good as Halo. Well,
yeah, I agree that I think that's a poor way to look at that specific thing. But my point is, it becomes a foundational issue if the things you are spending your time doing are not fun to you. If you are not engaged in the FPS combat, that it has you do a lot in the game, and you don't find that fun, that's a foundational issue because you're not having fun for large swaths of the game. If you don't have
if you didn't find it fun at all, I think that would be strange because I think it's more than functional. It's just not as good as a thing that's dedicated to that.
I would say it's competent, but if you're not having fun doing it and you're spending a lot of your time doing it, it's foundational. That's like
no.
That foundational.
You can't define having fun as foundational because having fun is different to different people.
That's why it's foundational. Everything is different to different people. You can have a expectation of like, look, when I spend my time doing things, if I'm in an action sequence and I want to be having fun and I'm not, then you have to sequester that entire piece of the game into mid or not super engaging if you don't enjoy that part of it. And so I would consider that like a foundational problem if you go in hoping that you're going to have exciting moment to moment gameplay and it doesn't click with you. And so I obviously this is all subjective, which is my point really, is that
but foundational should be different from subjective. That's my point.
Yeah. I mean, I think a 7 generally has something like 3-minute loads every 2 seconds or something. That you're like working
correct.
Through.
That's a foundational issue. Everyone has to sit through a 4-minute loading screen to go to a planet. That would be foundational because everyone has a negative experience because something core to the game is negative. You're talking about aspects that you're defining for yourself as not fun, whereas other people can find fun. That's not foundational.
Yeah,
isn't that the whole point of this whole thing?
Foundational, but yeah, I mean, I get. I guess what you guys are saying is objective problems, which the game does have objective problems.
Sure.
The bugs, the fact that you've crashed how many times on Xbox, Ains? How many times has your game crashed in 20 hours?
7. But
7 times.
It's crashed a lot. It's crashed a lot. But hold on.
Issue.
No. See, you're jumping again, which you tend to do. You're jumping.
Glad I haven't played.
You are.
No. Let me finish. The problem is I haven't found anyone else having that issue, right? Like everyone I've talked to, countless people now on Xbox aren't having that issue.
I have it. Everyone on the IGN team had it. We all played more than 60 hours and all of us had crashes. All of us.
Okay.
I have not.
Multiple times.
I have 0. Dan has no crashes.
Yeah, Dan has 0.
He hasn't
Done.
played it. You guys are early. I will say the game was impressively stable for the first 50 hours for me. I actually didn't have your problem, Ains, where I was crashing right out the gate. The game was super stable, and I was actually like messaging other people on the team like, hey, I think they made a bug-free game. Like, I haven't seen anything. And then it started to happen. And I was like, okay, actually, it is.
My favorite Bethesda bug that I've had so far is that a dinosaur was too close to me taking off my ship, and it flew into space with me.
My favorite one.
I love that stuff. That's hilarious. That's
awesome. My favorite one is Dan shot somebody's jetpack, and then where they fly away and they crash into something and blow up. He went straight up into the ceiling. There was an overhead above him, and then his head got lodged in the ceiling, and then he just dangled from the ceiling. So it looked like a cartoon, like his head got pancaked into the ceiling and fell down.
Well, you said 7 crashes on Xbox, so you moved over to PC. So there's
none on PC. No, that's what I'm saying.
Right,
no, none on PC.
But like also when
I don't know what that specific. My experience was I didn't have crashes on Xbox or PC, and then after I had played it for over 50 hours, then I've had crashes regularly every couple hours, like on the dot. I also encountered a bug that made my character act as if he was in a ship when he isn't. And that seems like it would just be a funny thing, except that then I was fast traveling around to try to get that bug to go away, and it overwrit over my autosaves, and I lost like 10 hours of progress because the game was unplayable. I couldn't do anything except for act like I was in a ship, even though I was planet side. Stuff like that, like it can ruin your account. Multiple people that I know who were playing the game early actually had to start their file over because of like game breaking stuff like that. So if that happens to you and you're like begrudged because you lost 50 hours, I could see why you think the game's a 7 or lower or whatever.
Okay, well, let's take that for an example. Hold on, real quick. So, and I'm on nobody's side here. I don't care. As far as I'm concerned, you review a game, it's your opinion. That's it. All right. And 100%. One more thing. If you can't come out and criticize somebody for giving it a 7, 1, when you haven't played it, and 2, when you haven't played it. So stop with the emotions. All right. You haven't played the game yet.
Even if you have played it, my point is that person had an experience and they have opinions that they believe and they think that it's a 7. I think you should accept that and say, I disagree with it. I disagree with his ultimate score. I don't think it's that low for me, but I also experienced a different game than Dan. Some of the stuff that bothered him didn't bother me as much, etc. Right. But I think that you can look at this game and go, yeah, I could see how some of the stuff might be off-putting to certain players, or, I don't know if anybody's saying that it's a perfect game. I don't think it's a perfect game. It's got stuff that it can improve. If you are somebody who's really bad with directions and memorization and you have no tolerance for maps, the map thing alone is foundational enough for somebody to be like, dude, I think for me, it's not a 9 or a 10 right away because of the map thing. Like you could totally draw that conclusion.
So let me draw on here because I think Hogue was kind of touching on this, and I wanted to get to the rest of the super chats, but we've gone on lots of tangents now.
And I still haven't talked about my thoughts about
Here's the thing I think I want to ask you guys, and it's the big question I want to ask you, and even the audience. So please let me know your thoughts here. If I'm reviewing this game, and I didn't review this game, but if I'm reviewing this game and games like it, the Baldur's Gate 3s, Cyberpunks, what are these big kind of games that are attempting to do a lot of things, right? Do you feel, this is a personal thing, do you feel there's room to say, yes, the map thing's annoying. Yes, the lack of a planetary vehicle is annoying. The things we've talked about, right? It has annoyances. But because the scope of this game is so grand and so vast, and because it's got so many systems at play, and it's trying to do so much, and it's giving the player so many options to play the game in various ways, do you allow some leniency for those little things? And I think that a lot of people, and I would say I do, because the game is giving me so much, and it's trying to do so much, and it's allowing me to play and just completely get lost in a different universe, which I adore. It's okay for me to say the UI is a little fiddly, the lack of a map, etc. The stuff we've talked about, that doesn't weigh on me as much. Now, if this was a game where I'm going point to point and it's a linear game, the scope is very narrow, and then it has these same issues, I look at that a little differently. But I think because this game is delivering such a vast and grand experience, I almost expect that there's going to be little things that annoy me. It's just the nature of this scope of the game.
I think that is a 100% valid way of approaching it. I also think it's valid to look at the scope of Starfield and say they tried too much. They should have made it smaller. It would probably be better, right? And you could do like an Outer Worlds type game. That was another space-based RPG that took a smaller approach, a smaller approach in terms of its scope, but it succeeded at some of those things a lot better than Starfield does, right? It certainly succeeded at the decisions and your actions having an impact on the world and getting to come to different ultimate endings and all that stuff. It definitely succeeded at that better than Starfield does, right? And so you could definitely look at Starfield and go, okay, I get it. It's a big game, but I wish they would have cut A, B, and C, made it smaller, and made the other stuff better. And I think one of the things that honestly they might have Yeah, you could totally come to that. And I don't think that's a bad argument. I think you go, hey, look, they could have cut the procedurally generated worlds. I don't think it adds a lot. I think it kind of bloats the game and it makes the worlds feel less dense. I would have liked them to focus on 20 worlds and made them all packed with different stuff. And that might have resulted in me having more fun. I think that's a valid way to do it. I tend to agree with you, Ains. I went in here expecting a Bethesda game. I wished it would have done certain stuff better. 100%. I don't think it's a 9 or 10 for me because of some of the stuff it fails to do. But I think it ultimately succeeds at what it's trying to do. I'm having fun with it. I want to play more of it. And I think there's room for all sorts of opinions here.
Of course.
Nobody has to get angry, or especially the thing that people are doing, which is they're saying IGN hates Xbox, which is not true. And it's like demonstrably false. If you look at all the reviews of Xbox games, Forza Horizon 5 was our game of the year a couple years ago. We've given a lot of Xbox exclusives 9s.
You guys gave, I see, this is the problem with saying
Hi-Fi
you guys
Rush. Right.
This is the problem with saying you guys as an outlet, right? Because individual reviewers have different opinions. And I think people need to remember that. And the reviewer, I forget who it is, you might know, for IGN on Pentiment gave Pentiment a 10. I reviewed Pentiment. I liked Pentiment. It is not a 10 it's nowhere close to a 10 in my book.
It's not a 10, correct.
Right.
Yeah. And I know who reviewed it. It was Liana, and she likes games that are 100% story focused and really is not all that into like the whole gameplay thing. So that's, that was obviously
up her alley.
But it's up her alley, and you can read a review and she says those things in the review, and then you can go, okay, look, I'm not that, so I'm probably not going to like Pentiment. But that's why you seek out reviews that match what you think. And if you want to find an IGN review that is a high review of Starfield, we got 3 of those. There's 3 other reviewers at different IGN branches that gave it a higher score than Dan, including 2 10s. IGN Japan gave it a 10. You can go read their review if you think you'll agree with them more. But that's my point, is that we're all just folks trying to enjoy a game, and some of us, it didn't click as much as others. By the way, I would just want to say that Dan's is a recommendation. A 7 is a good score in IGN's rubric. And so he did not have ultimately the point where he said, don't play this game. He wasn't saying that to anybody.
I do think we have to clarify again. All references to Dan in this conversation are not to our Dan.
Not to our Dan. I'm talking about my Dan,
played the game.
Dan Stapleton.
No idea.
I think we've already talked about Dan too much.
Creed says, is Starfield as good as the Outer Worlds? I say it does some things way better than Outer Worlds. It does some things way worse. It just depends what you're looking for in your game. If you're looking for,
I'm enjoying Starfield a lot more than Outer Worlds, but I thought the writing in Outer Worlds was much more satire and parody than was warranted by the.
I loved Outer Worlds, but I know I'll spend more time.
Parody. So for me, like, I feel like the mood of Outer Worlds was more built for me because satire and parody is my jam.
It's just not real. Starfield is trying to be real.
Starfield's trying to be real, exactly. And I think that even though it goes some weird places, but I do agree that it just depends what you're looking for. But like, if you were saying, is which one's better, Outer Worlds or Starfield, in giving me a Fallout New Vegas vibe,
there's too much
Outer Worlds for sure.
There's too much context, right? It's. I think we make the mistake of comparing things directly like that because there's too much personal opinion in it, as we've said many times now. Let's get back to Super Chats. Oh, go ahead, Hoke.
Oh, no, I was just going to say, going back to even like our Mass Effect discussions, right? What did I say I loved about the first Mass Effect was this kind of exploration notion in Star Trek and doing those kinds of things. And that was taken away in Mass Effect 2. Starfield is that Mass Effect 1 feel, right? It has the going to different planets and experiencing new societies and cultures and getting all that excitement. Only even more than Mass Effect, the group that you're with, regardless of how you feel about Sarah Morgan, is really focused on exploration. So it's exactly built for me. Like, it's exactly what I want out of a story, out of a world to participate in. So I mean, like, yeah, of course it's going to work for me that well, but it might work for you that well. It depends on what you like.
Yeah. And I mean, at least in that case, we've definitively decided that Mass Effect 1's the best. So at least on that one, we solved it, without any argument.
I feel comfortable saying that if you feel Mass Effect was the best Mass Effect, that this is going to work for you.
Yeah, but it's not going to work for everybody is my point. And maybe the people who like Mass Effect 2 more will like Starfield less, for example.
Those heathens, cretins. All right, moving on. Super Chats. Super majority.
So I actually have an answer to this one. So Ryan.
Well, we didn't even. Hold on. Let's actually read the super chat, please.
I was muted. I'm trying not to sigh too much. Rain Man YYC, $5 Canadian. So Sarah is the Starfield anti-homage to Oblivion's adoring fan.
Sarah is much better than Travis is saying.
Yeah, so I will say she's not the adoring fan, because there is the actual Oblivion adoring fan in the game if you choose that trait, with the same voice actor and the same look. It's like the exact same person, which by the way is hilarious. But I will say Sarah is extremely judgmental, and she feels like having your mom over your shoulder. Like, are you sure you want to do it that way? Really? Like, and she gets mad at you for the most like bizarre reasons. Like, for example, I was like bluffing with somebody, and I lied by going like, yeah, man, I'm totally like agreeing with you, wink wink, right? It's Sarah. And then Sarah goes, oh my God, I can't believe you would say that. Sarah Morgan disliked that. And I'm like, bro, I was lying about my feelings, but she took it as,
Can we get a graphic to go with our versus graphic that just says Sarah Morgan disliked that?
Yes, that would be great. Sarah Morgan can dislike all my
That's
stuff.
Coming.
Yeah, I will say my problem with her is she feels like soccer mom, space Karen, like absolutely just like not fun at parties, throws a wet blanket over everything. And she makes, if you're just trying to go into the universe and have fun, she will throw a wet blanket over every time. Do not bring her with you. And here's the thing, even if you don't bring her with you, somehow she will find out about things you did while she wasn't there and lecture you about them. It's unbelievable. She'll show up.
You to focus. Like, buckle up.
I heard that you did this. And I'm like, yo, go away. Who is updating you?
So there's no like,
who snitched? Was it you, Andrasia? Did you snitch? You got to talk around.
Well, there's no like, I can close this door and they won't see me do what I'm about to do.
No,
kind of
dude. Sarah always knows. She's omnipresent about your decisions in the game.
And
she will tell you how she feels about it. It's very irritating.
Gotcha.
You're representing her brand, Travis. She cares.
Yeah. And by the way,
sucks, bro.
Keep my mom's name out your mouth. All right.
Yeah.
Moving on.
All right. Eric, yay, EJ. He's here with $5 super chat. As someone who isn't the biggest BGS game fan, should it be a huge concern with even true fans saying that it can feel a bit cumbersome to get going?
Oh, I didn't feel this.
I didn't feel this either.
But you guys are BGS fans, as am I. I could see somebody who isn't a fan of this type of game, and this is like maybe the least approachable version of that. Like Skyrim's way more approachable because they simplified a lot of stuff, right?
You're in
so
New
if you
Atlantis
already don't like it. What's that?
You're in New Atlantis in like 2 seconds.
Yeah, but then, learning all of the systems of the game, like it's pretty, I would say one of the shortcomings of the game is they don't do a great job of explaining a lot of stuff in the game. And so if you're already overwhelmed by the grandiosity and lack of direction of a Skyrim, I would say this is not going to remedy that.
It's denser than Skyrim.
It's denser.
Yeah, it's
more convoluted and complex on purpose. And some people think that's great. I actually think that's great.
That on purpose is important, right? Because you described it as a shortcoming, and I think there's some very deliberate steps taken to not give you every little inch of information. It doesn't do the triptych approach. It doesn't do a lot of those little screens. In fact, I think it probably does too many because you think, oh, it's going to tell me how everything works, and then it just doesn't.
It doesn't. Yep.
But it's really
if you don't like those sorts of things, though, it certainly is a shortcoming for you.
Yeah, sorry, I lost my train of thought. Yeah,
it's basically boxing you out of the game, right? If it's not your thing,
just open up help and go to afflictions. I was like, man, they put every system they could think of in this.
Yeah, and see, I never relate to these types of comments because I love it. I love getting lost in things and figuring things out, but that's just my nature. I can see, to Travis' point, I can see how some people wouldn't. Yes.
Actually, I'm on your side as well, Ains. Like I'm on in that school of thought, but also like I understand why people like Hogue don't like Souls-like games, right? Because it's not for them, and they look at the stuff that we get excited about Souls-likes, like dying a lot of bosses, and they see that as a vice, not a virtue, and that's a 100% valid way to look at it, right? If those games aren't for you, you can look at that and go, I don't want to play that. That's not a 10 out of 10 for me. Like Elden Ring or whatever, but yeah, if you don't like this, I can
still see the craft there. I mean, I've never said I can't. It's for sure. I see it.
Yeah, I mean, the thing with Elden Ring's a good comparison here because I heard the same thing with Elden Ring, and Elden Ring actually has a start where in my guide, right, there's about like 6 to 8 key items that you may not even ever find because it doesn't reference them at all. It's just the nature of some types of games. I like that. Some people don't. That's fine. Eric, good to see you, brother. Corey.
All right, Corey. Oh, with the $19.99 super chat, thank you. It's very generous. Reviews usually evaluate ambitious games objectively.
Oh, that's kind of what I mentioned. Yeah.
Yeah. Unlike IGN and GameSpot, this prompts ongoing scrutiny, raising the bar for future reviews. People now seek justifications for those reviewer scores. Maybe it's them.
Yeah.
Them
So
as
this
in
is
like the people that are trying to listen. I blame nothing on Dan Stapleton here. I blame everything on most of the fan base that got crazy. I have no. I mean, it just they lost their crap. So I
yeah.
mean,
Well, this this comment is pretty dumb. I'll be honest. Sorry, I know it's a super chat and you paid money for it, but your ignorance is showing, my friend. Reviews usually evaluate ambitious games objectively. False. No reviews do that. Reviews are subjective. They're a person's opinions. You don't know what you're talking about. IGN and GameSpot's reviews are as subjective as any other review you will read out there. That's the nature of the beast. Your statement is wrong. It's just wrong. There's no such thing as an objective review. Show me one, and I'll happily concede that point, but they don't exist. So yeah, I can't even really engage with the rest of that comment because it's based on a premise that is inaccurate.
I agree with you on broad strokes, Travis. Certainly reviews are subjective, but I do think that where people get confused or use the term objective differently than you are using it right now is that you can have a philosophy that guides your review process that is not just how do I feel about this game, and that tries to look at things like how do more people than me look at this game, right? Like Elden Ring, I'd probably give an 8 or a 9 out to, despite the fact that my personal experience is probably a 4 out of 5.
Yeah, I mean, some people try to do that. You can certainly take that approach. I think that's kind of foolhardy to grade a game or review a game based on what you expect somebody else's reaction to the game be, rather than just telling your reaction to it. I think
broadly, I agree with you, Travis.
Again, but you, Hogue, I would never have you review Elden Ring for that exact reason, because you would be having to review it on behalf of a person that you aren't. And so that's the difference here, right? Is Dan is the type of person where he loves every other Bethesda game. He was expecting like this one, and some of the issues that impacted probably everyone here impacted him more. He had less of a good time with it. And I'm seeing some reactions to that online. Like there's also been it's important to note, there's also been a backlash to the 10 out of 10 reviews where people feel like they were sold a game that they did not sign up to play. And they're like, yo, I don't like this and this and that. And I think that's also a pretty impressive way to do it. Have you seen Angry Joe's review process? He is pretty close to an objective. No, he does not. That is false as it can be. Completely false.
I think the word objective is used weirdly here. Because
I think what you're saying is lack of bias, right, Ains?
Well, there's that, but when he says ambitious games, Corey, and I'm trying to read between the lines here, but I think what he may be trying to say is going back to what I was saying, where some of the smaller issues in the game I can overlook because what the game is doing, the scope, the grandiose nature of it is so much broader than other games, than most games give you. And so because it's doing so much and giving you so much, some of the small little issues are less impactful. And if I was reviewing Starfield, that would factor into my thought process. I think what you're saying is those issues, for whatever reason, Dan felt were bigger negativity towards his experience than they are for me or someone else.
He's also played more of the game than you guys, and your opinions might change by the time you get to the end. If the game starts being more unstable,
that's very true.
You guys don't like the story or whatever, you guys might end up being closer to me than you are today, and that could happen, right? And so
very true. Very true.
Things could change from now to then. My point is, I think when people use the word objectively, what they actually mean is biased. They're claiming that IGN is a biased review, where the point of the review was to hurt Starfield or hurt Microsoft. And I think people are projecting or creating conspiracy theories where none exist. The goal of that review was to tell one person's opinion of the game, and the opinion was that it was a good, not great game for that person, right? That's every review. Reviews are all subjective. There is no, ulterior motive or anything like that. Dan does not have problem with Xbox games. He actually tweeted his previous Xbox exclusive scores, and they were all higher than the Metacritic average, right?
Yeah, can I comment on that just a second, Travis? Because I do think, I don't know Dan. You know Dan. I don't know the people that run IGN, but I do think it actually feeds some of this to be as kind of publicly defensive as
he's
Dan
going about it the wrong way
for the last couple of days.
Yep. No, I agree. And Dan is the type of person where he just can't help himself but speak out. And I'm the same way. And I agree that sometimes when you defend yourself, people use that as fuel to indicate that there is something afoot. But I would say the alternative is like being quiet and let people say whatever they want. And those both sound like shitty options to me, to be honest. And I'm the type of person.
But I do think you get a better outcome at the end of the day.
Possibly. And I would say, maybe that would have been a good approach, but I'm the type of guy where I'm gonna say what I feel. I'm on this show. You guys are asking me what I think about this. I'm having to look at these comments. I'm gonna react to it because I don't like bullies, man. And a lot of these,
and I would say we've already spent way more time talking about a single person's opinion than I wanted to this episode.
It's more about the
methodology and the response. I get it.
It's not just Dan that gave the score he gave, by the way. There's actually quite a few number of reviews out there that are in that kind of middle range that it just didn't click with them. I think if you played this game, you could see how it wouldn't click with everyone. Like, even if you love it, you could see how it might not be for everyone.
Yeah. And like I said, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. What one person thinks of a game, it doesn't matter. It doesn't impact you at all. And it's so
sure
weird.
Does.
It's so weird. Well, yeah, it's so weird to spend time on. Like,
oh my God.
I hope reviews do impact you, right? Like, Ains, you write reviews, so you must hope that some of your reviews impact people, right? That if you didn't like a game, that it gets some people to maybe reconsider buying it, and that if you do love it, that it convinces some people to buy whatever that cat game was, the cat game with the sword.
The one I will never live down.
Right.
Yes.
But your hope is that somebody will read your review and compare it to some other reviews that were more negative, and they'll go, you know what, this guy liked it. I tend to agree with him. I'm gonna buy it. So I think reviews should affect you, but they shouldn't. You shouldn't have any personal stake in the Metacritic rating of a game. That's where it gets me. Like, if you just look at it and you go, oh, it needs to be an 88, or the people who gave it a lower score are out to get the game or out to get Microsoft. Like, it's just a false narrative. It's a conspiracy theory. It's not true. And that's all I'm trying to say here is I would just like people to moderate their opinions a little bit and just realize we're all gamers out here playing the game, and not everybody agrees with you. I think that's okay. We're all doing the best we can. That's
I agree with you, by the way. But I need to put up this comment. Where is it? Thank you, my friend. Thank you.
Yeah.
To me, that is the 7, right? Biomutant is the 7 with foundational issues. I get how somebody could really like it, but it's, Ains, Biomutant has foundational issues. It's got long stretches of dialogue that don't tell you anything and that have the gibberish speak. I mean, it has foundational issues.
Tando saying reviews aren't opinions.
Okay.
You're wrong, dude. I just don't know how do you think that? How do you think that they're not opinions? Show me one review that isn't an opinion, and I will prove you wrong immediately.
I mean, it would be the size of the box is 13 inches.
Yeah. If it were not an opinion, it would have to be Starfield is a video game. You can play it on Xbox. There are starships. That would be the review. You wouldn't be able to say the gunplay is good. The gunplay is good is a subjective statement, saying that it's fun to explore blank planet, or the storylines are good, or the writing is good. All of those are opinions. Tando, you're just wrong. I'm sorry.
Speaking of good opinions,
me and Eric have been friends for a long time.
So there you go. You think it's got foundational opinions? Eric J says it's God tier. That is beautiful. People should look at that as a feature, not a bug. Like, that is great. That's inspiring for me.
I'm fine with that. Again, I think that's Biomutant is a 7.
No, I don't want to talk about Biomutant.
What are we doing here?
We're letting you sleep, Dan.
God.
All right. So seriously, reviews are subjective. That's just a fact, to Travis's point. We have a lot of super chats to get through. I do want to get through with them, and we have a lot of conversation. We're nearly at 2 hours, and we're not even through these super chats.
I haven't even talked about what I think about Starfield yet. Anyway.
That's my point. Like, we need to move on. If you don't agree with someone's review, don't agree with it. That's fine. Seriously, go enjoy the games you enjoy. I love the hell out of Biomutant. Not to keep talking about it. Lots of people didn't. I'm in the minority. I know that. That's fine. Doesn't matter.
Great.
But I find that beautiful and inspiring, just for the record. I love that people can take away different experiences, and it's why
finds that
I want to be
beautiful and inspiring, unless you're talking about Resident Evil 6, folks.
And then I find it beautiful, inspiring that someone like you could exist, who's like smart, well-adjusted, and somehow thinks Resident Evil 6 is good. Like that's insane to me, and I find beauty in the chaos.
We have some super chats here which are pretty negative, so it is what it is.
And understand that.
I would
fund some of these if I could, but I can't. Dan Lazaro, $10. Herring Travis, I understand why people don't like IGN.
God.
All right, if it was a slow start for you, that's how you played. The controls are standard BGS controls. The game is amazing. I have not stopped playing,
and that's fine, Dan. Yeah, that's fine. If you love it, love it. Yeah, there's too many Dans, by the way. Get a more original name like Ainsley and get beat up when you're younger. Come on.
I have nothing wrong with his first statement. I also, if I were an avatar for IGN, my unlikability meter is off the charts. I'm 100% familiar with that. I am a unlikable, gripey Jew. There's nothing to like about this, and that's fine. That's I'm not a likable person, but I'm a great reviewer. So
you are that. I give you credit for that, Dan. There's too many Dans. Dan Lazar, I do appreciate the super chat. Thank you for that. But yeah, I hope that the conversation we've had in the past 45 minutes has kind of, gone around some of the things you're saying here. Biscuit's in the house. Hey, I love this comment.
With $5, I decided I'm playing as a serial killer.
Wait! You gotta read that name. Read that username.
Biscuit. The Australian $5. Is that what that is?
Yes.
Okay. I've decided I'm playing as a serial killer, but I want to be able to collect body parts, specifically heads. I'm going to have a headroom on my ship. I did that in The Sims. I just put people like in a room.
Jesus. I don't know if you can collect body parts. I don't think the game allows for that.
I don't think I did that either.
There is a black market for harvested organs, but so far as I can tell, you cannot harvest the organs yourself. You have to find operations that are doing it and break them up and steal all their organs and then sell them, which is what the
modders will come into play here. Don't worry. Biscuit, shout out to you, brother. Good to see Biscuit. Biscuit's a good dude. I got to meet him in person in LA in June. His first time out there, had a great time. Thank you, man. Gamefire, just a comment, says that Starfield broke 234K concurrent players on Steam, which is pretty crazy. I think it's still the premium access right now. So it's definitely, we knew this was going to be a big game, obviously. Mm-hmm. JP in the house.
Yeah, what's the czar again? What's the, have we ever? It's not
Rand, South African Rand.
South African Rand, 70.
Yes.
Thank you, JP, Spectre N8. I'm having an amazing time with Starfield. I was in a dogfight with someone, and afterwards it created a crash site on a nearby planet where there was another random event connected to that crash site.
That's very cool. That is very cool. Yes. Awesome, man. Glad you're enjoying it. Having a great time. Appreciate you, JP. Good to see you. This is a reference to an earlier. I'm sorry we're getting to some of these super chats late because we've been kind of rambling on. But
Duke, God Emperor Sofa King with the $2. But Duke Nukem Forever an 8. I'm assuming that is again in regards to Dan Stapleton's review of Duke Nukem Forever.
Did he review it?
I have no idea. I don't know what this is referencing.
I don't know what they're referencing, but if you're referencing a separate review,
that'd be my guess.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's my guess.
Again, I mean, I think we've covered this, right? Reviews are perfectly subjective. I think we joke about it constantly, but I think Biomutant's like meta's like a 665 or something. I even know. Whatever. It's fine.
Yeah. Everybody has opinions.
Yeah, and I really do appreciate the super chats, guys. So thank you for that. But I think we've covered some of this.
And Dan Lazaro back with $5 super chat. It is important for people to see this episode and see how IGN reviews work. It's kind of gross. The reviewers' past actions prove a bias, not conspiracy. I'm done.
I like that. I like the first 8 words. It's important for people to see this episode.
Yeah.
We'll leave it there.
I'm not describing how IGN works. I'm describing how all reviews work. And if you have a problem with all reviews, then I don't know what to tell you. You probably shouldn't read reviews, but your ignorance is showing, my friend. And I hope that you take something else away from this episode, because I'm not trying to scare people away from the industry. I'm just trying to explain how opinions work and how reviews work. And yeah, it's just I'm sorry you took that away.
Yeah. Dan, again, thank you for the super chat. But I hope the conversation has at least kind of talked about some of these things here that you have concerns with. But regardless, I do hope if Starfield, you're enjoying it. I hope you're enjoying it. Like we said, it's all that matters.
So to follow up on one of the earlier comments, The Duke Nukem Forever review from IGN was written by someone named Charles Onyett.
There you go.
But also to go with the overall storyline, it is a 5.5.
There you go. All right. So I don't know where he's getting that information, but yeah, there's a lot of misinformation out there. People saying things that just aren't true. And it's hard to fight it all. I try to do it where I can, but like, it's sort of like screaming at the wind. Yeah. Yeah. It's a little bit of an uphill battle.
That's what I mean. It's not worth it. Like,
it's not worth it. Yeah.
It's just not worth it.
I still try. I know.
I
honestly think sometimes you engage with people and you can change hearts and minds one at a time, but you have to pick your battles. There's some cases that maybe are not worth your time or effort. But, yeah.
Well, I would hope, like, I know our regular viewers, we have nearly 400 people here with us, and I would think that our regular viewers know how we handle these types of things, right? We have an honest discourse about it. We have a lot of experience with this stuff, and not to say that puts us in a different position, but it does sometimes because, obviously Travis understands the inner workings of reviews at IGN, and I know how we do reviews at SG, and we have a lot of opinions, but I think that I would hope that the discourse we have on this show, generally speaking, helps with some of these conversations. Because I think we approach it from a very open-minded perspective that will give some insight that you may not get elsewhere. So I hope that we do that. On the super chat, £2 super chat. What's up, brother? He said, is there any game like Starfield? Yeah, I mean, I think we've kind of tackled this by now, right? Like, Starfield is a big Bethesda RPG. It has those tenets. It is a Bethesda RPG through and through and through. And I'm very excited to continue spending time in that world. Will it be like my favorite game of all time? Probably not. But I know what I'm going to get out of this game. I'm going to enjoy it. And I think it will. I do believe that it will be a game like the others, like the Skyrims, the Oblivions, the Morrowinds, the Fallouts that it's recognized and played for many years to come. At least from my experience so far.
Yeah, it does feel like it can have that longevity.
For sure. Thank you. Appreciate the super chat. Big Afroman, $10 super chat. Happy Sunday, y'all. Currently enjoying Starfield. Love the RPG mechanics. I'm curious as to why this game is so controversial. I'm seeing so much hate for it online. And is it because it's a BGS game or exclusive? I don't know. It could be a number of things. I think we've tackled some of that. But I think generally speaking, there are going to be those bad actors in the space that because it is now an exclusive and now an Xbox game, right? There's going to be people who make a big deal out of that. I would ignore them. You're enjoying the game. Many other people are enjoying the game. That's all that matters.
And also, it's worth shouting out that there's biased people or people with an agenda on both sides of that, right? There's people who are,
of course,
overpraising the game for stuff that they probably don't actually feel, and there's people probably slamming it just because they have some sort of affinity with console wars. I will say this: I don't know anybody who's a serious reviewer or writer in the industry who feels that way at all. Like, not at any major outlet that I'm aware of that would alter their review at all because they like PlayStation or like Xbox. It's just not really a widespread or common thing. You see it in pockets of like really specific indie sites, but usually those are pretty easy to spot, right? If they've got
they usually
PlayStation
put the title of the console they like in their name.
Exactly. PlayStation Reviewer magazine, and then they review Starfield and they give it a 4. I probably wouldn't trust that, but I would also say the same of like 10 of 10 from Xbox Fanatic.edu or whatever. Yeah, exactly. So I mean, you use your best judgment.
Yeah, I think that's pretty obvious. But I'm glad you're enjoying it. As we've clearly said, I'm enjoying the living hell out of it. So thank you for the super chat. Older Gamer of the House, Canadian $10 super chat. Just completed a few chapters of Under the Waves, and it's a nice surprise. It's a chill and relaxed experience so far. Story is a nice slow burn with mystery. I recommend to give it a try. Very cool.
Yeah.
Very cool. Yeah, so one thing I forgot to ask when you were talking about this game, Hogue, is this on all platforms or a specific platform?
So. I'm playing it on the PlayStation.
Okay, fair enough. Very cool. Thank you, Older Gamer. Good to see you, man. Biscuits back, Australian
title.
Okay, all right. $7.99 super chat. I spoke to Dan about this. Many of you played the game. Why not aggregate your scores? One main reviewer, 3 who write blurbs. Gamatsu does this. So I think he's asking Travis, like, from an IGN perspective, if so many people were playing it, and this would probably apply to other large outlets as well. Because EGM, I think, was probably the most famous for this for years, where EGM would do like 4 blurbs, right? 4 different scores for different people, and sometimes usually they would kind of be in line, but once in a while you get one where it's like a 9 versus a 5 or something like that.
Yeah.
So
those were fun.
It's
Yes.
it's an interesting model. I definitely miss the EGM days. Those were cool. But I would say the philosophy at IGN is they're trying to give reviews are always one person's opinion, and so how useful is an aggregate unless you have an in-depth explanation of how somebody came to that conclusion. And so I'd say the benefit of just choosing one reviewer that you think knows their stuff and that game is clearly targeted for that type of player, like they have an active interest in playing and reviewing that game, a stake in it being good, as it were. I think it's pretty helpful to have 3,000, 4,000 words describing exactly their impressions and what it does well and what it does poorly for them, and then assigning a score to that to serve as a sort of compass or roadmap for people that find that number useful, which I think a lot of people do. So yeah, it's an interesting thing. I have no problem with that philosophy. I also don't have a problem with scoreless reviews. Some people have asked me about that this week.
Yeah.
And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I just think IGN has a system, and I think our system's good. And I think we follow it pretty well. And if you don't like it, you could just read reviews other places, or you could choose specific reviewers whose opinions you tend to agree with. Or if you're like Hogue, you can choose reviewers whose opinions you disagree with and read all their reviews to know if you should play a game or not, which Hogue does. He reads my reviews, and then if I don't like a game, he goes, yeah, I'll like it. I'll like it for sure.
Yeah, that's a little reductive.
I know, it's a joke.
Care about that I don't.
It was a joke. Yeah.
We've talked about this even at SG being a small site too. And to be quite honest with you, we've discussed this quite a bit, this approach. Quite honest with you, usually it's just not time sensitive, right? It's very hard to take one game and have multiple people writing about it because there's so many other things.
Don't normally get 1,000
multiple copies either. Correct. Yeah. So it's tough, but I think Travis's point is valid too. And Travis, by the way, Travis and I did a 2.5 hour long episode one-on-one just talking about game reviews. It's literally on our channel on Season Gaming. So if you want to talk and get an understanding of how reviews are done from a big site and small site perspective, as well as two guys who have done a lot of reviews, you can watch that. But I was also going to say that I think I see a lot of people say we shouldn't have scores, and I get what they're saying, because really you should read the review and understand where the reviewer is coming from and the nuance of that. But that's not the site or reviewer's fault. It's the reader's fault for looking at the score and not really diving into the content.
Not having any curiosity.
100%.
That's my problem with it. You see a 7 and you assume there must be some evil agenda. It's like, just read the review. Like, have a little curiosity to like open up the review and read it. And I've seen really crazy stuff. Like, somebody quoted the review and said, "Oh my God, I can't believe IGN's review said this." And then the screenshot was not the IGN review. It was somebody else's review. So there's just a lot of like false narrative out there. Have a little bit of internet literacy, dig a little deeper, try to, don't believe everything you read on the internet, So that's true. There's just a little bit of craziness going on out there. And we expected that. I mean, a big high profile game like this, especially one that's exclusive to one console. I mean, this is like primed to cause a big snafu.
We knew it was going to be. So,
but it's still disappointing, right? The industry breaks your heart every once in a while when you see just how people behave.
I posted, I think on like Monday or Tuesday, someone saying about this is going to be an interesting day on Thursday. And I said, it's going to be a shit show for a number of reasons. And I had people pinging me like, why is it going to be a shit show? What do you know? And I'm like, I just know, regardless of what the scores are, I just know how it's going to be with a big high profile exclusive release. It's like that every time. So, don't engage with it. Enjoy the game or go play something else. Biscuit, thank you again for the super chat. Dan, you back?
I'm back. All right. The Black John with the $5 super chat. People's gripe with IGN in the Xbox camp is that the last month IGN excluded Xbox on multiple announcements like Lies of P and Mortal Kombat 1. Can't speak on this because I have no idea what he's talking about.
Yeah, I mean, I can't either. I've seen some stuff like this, but I think it's people reading into very simple stuff that didn't have anything to do with anything and assuming that it means something, right? They're like the people. Yeah, that's human beings, people that, put string on the board and try to connect all the dots. And sometimes there's just no conspiracy. Sometimes it's just a series of unrelated events. And so I can only speak to what I've seen, which is there's a whole lot of people at IGN who love Xbox We have the #1 Xbox podcast in the world at IGN. It's been running for a number of years. Ryan McCaffrey's on it. He's one of my bosses. I love that guy. And we've got lots of people that have you seen Destin? Destin's sort of out of control in his love for Xbox. I mean, that guy tweets way more than he should about that. So I just think, like, if in order for you to believe that sort of conspiracy, you would have to be looking at very specific data points and blinding yourself to all of the stuff that contradicts that theory to come to that conclusion, because there's just a lot of evidence that that's wrong. And in my experience, it's very wrong. And I can speak for Dan Stapleton because I know him personally. It is for sure wrong. He has no bias against Xbox. It's just not true.
Okay. Black John, thank you for the super chat. Shoosh
with the €5. This episode is a train wreck, so we might as well add dinner ideas. Any recommendations? I believe I said ramen.
Ramen's great.
I'm having shepherd's pie tonight, which is one of my favorites.
That's my favorite food to eat in Starfield.
Shepherd's pie?
Nice.
It is.
I like, yeah.
I don't think I found a shepherd's pie yet.
It's down in the well.
Well, 10 out of 10.
I'm headed to the well later, and my review just went up by 2 points. There's subjectivism for you.
There you go. Hey, some people, you could have a personal preference where if there's no shepherd pie in the game, it's a 1. And
it's a tavern-style shepherd's pie. It looks delicious.
Right.
Oh, yeah, it does. 11 out of 10. 11 out of 10.
There's a lot of really delicious looking food in Starfield.
Actually, the textures on some of those things up close are really insane. They're almost photorealistic. It's quite funny. Shoes, thank you. Always good to see you. GK Bowls.
GK Bowls with $5 super chat. Travis, clearly, and it's unfortunate people can't understand the concept. Great show, guys. Thank you.
Thank you, GK. I appreciate
that.
We got
one person agrees with me.
Well,
I'll side with you, Travis. I think you were a noble warrior for both your industry and your institution.
I don't.
Yeah.
No, I'm kidding. No, but I do think, like I said, I think we try to do our best to talk through these kind of topics in a reasonable manner without, getting all flamboyant about it. So I hope people enjoy that.
Whoa.
What?
Hey, Guybrush, don't talk about Yakuza food. There's no reason to bring that stuff up there.
I mean, he's kind of right. The food
he is kind of right, but that doesn't mean you have to talk about it. I mean,
it's a foundational issue of Yakuza, in my opinion.
It sort of looks like Lego food, but yeah,
it's probably delicious. All right, Added Doton.
Aid. Say Aid.
Aid Doton. Aid. I can't. I'm not even...
Just say Aid.
Aid. How are you? Thanks for the £5. Reviews should not have a score. However, if they don't, how will console warmongering?
No kidding. Yeah, no kidding.
That's what you're getting a lot on the internet.
Most of these people can't read. That's
that is not. I think the accusation there is that scores only exist to create clickbait and drama, and that's just not true. There's a lot of data to support the fact that scores actually are super helpful to readers in understanding where a game sits and how much it is being recommended or not recommended. And so that's why scores exist at our outlet. And I think it's why lots of people like to use them, is that it is useful to people reading.
Yeah.
I agree. Sometimes it isn't helpful and creates drama, et cetera, but that's sort of a negative byproduct. It is not the primary use. And I think if you don't exist exclusively on Twitter and in YouTube comment sections, there's a lot of people who casually read those articles and benefit from seeing the score next to the verdict. So
yeah, that's agreed. And as a smaller outlet, I've talked about this before, but
I know it was a joke, but I think some people think it's not a joke. So I'm just trying to, I know.
Yeah, it was a joke. As a smaller outlet too, the sad fact is that scores tie into SEO, and not having a score can really impact whether your review gets seen, which sucks. But it's just a fact of the industry.
The reason it ties into SEO, by the way, is because of aggregate sites, which IGN or any other outlet has no control over who aggregates your score. They just take it and
fix that problem. Everybody stop giving scores. Metacritic and OpenCritic go away. They don't know what they're doing now. Oh, I can't have a score. What are we going to do?
Yeah,
Dan, you let me know when that happens.
You literally have reviewers going at each other and commenting on Dan Stapleton, like high-profile reviewers out there for big publications that have said stuff about it. That's where we shouldn't be, but yet that's where we are. Oh, it's wild. Oh, that's a crazy number.
Social media,
I'm looking at these people like, what are you doing, man? I say you're bringing down the whole thing. I mean, this is what reviews are. When I gave Assassin's Creed 7, I got a little crap for it here at SG. People were like, "What? That's crazy. That's craziness." But really, I explained my thoughts. I thought I was pretty thorough in what I said about it, and I thought I justified it in the writing of the article. So
Yeah.
I mean, and that's what I always thought. I don't review games anymore, but that's why I always went into it. Like, if I'm gonna write about this, then I'm gonna figure out what score it is. Then I want to go back. I'm gonna make sure that what I've written justified what I'm going to give it, and I may make some changes, if I need to, or whatever I have to do. It's a complicated process in my head, but it's really not that hard. You just got to be able to read, and that seems to be lacking in our not necessarily this community, but in the gaming community in general. Play the game.
No, it's not the gaming community. It's a small, tiny subsection of the Twitter community. Yeah. It's not the gaming community.
And some people in our comment section, apparently.
Okay, thank you. JP's back again.
Another one with the South African Rand. Got that right this time. All right, appreciate everything you guys do. 2 questions. 1, what have been your favorite random moments so far in Starfield? 2, as a Remedy fan, Hogue, what are you most looking forward to in AW2 story-wise?
I think my favorite, it's not random, but my favorite random moment was the dinosaur getting kicked into space with me. My favorite not random moment was just kind of overhearing a quest line on Mars and unexpectedly having that be my day. Like, that was just my game day because it took 8 hours or whatever to get through the 17 steps that led to. As for Alan Wake 2, I really like that they leaked out that the boss in the real world is Alex Casey, who is a character that Alan Wake wrote in the first game. So they're messing with all their stuff from a marketing perspective. Who knows what's real in that game? That's what I'm looking forward to.
Perfect.
It's not far away either. You got less than 2 months.
Yep. Wow.
Yeah, cool random moment. I don't know. There's been a few. I would say that I was exploring a random place on, I think it was Mars or somewhere, and I found a guy who was dead, and he had left a message to his girlfriend and son. So when I searched him, I found that, and it basically points you to the woman who's on a different planet, who you can go give that to, and you can have a conversation with her about supporting her and her son, which was interesting. But I think those are the types of moments that I really enjoy in these types of games. It's just, you don't expect it. A lot of stuff you don't expect.
Very nice.
JP, man, you're going crazy today, JP.
JP's crazy.
I guess I'm not listing my reason or my highlight.
Go ahead. You didn't say anything. I thought you were going to jump in.
No, I'm just.
You can save it for your. You got to go. So, as a lore junkie, I'm loving all the stories / books in Starfield. How are you guys enjoying it? And what's your favorite aspect, if any?
It's the immersion. It's the world building that I really love so much. It's the multiple corporations that you see on both the items and then the planets and then hear about in the news. So I think all of that works together to create a sense of world that, honestly, I think Bethesda are the only ones that even try to do for the most part. But I did say in text, and Ains is going to disagree with me because he disagreed with me in text, but I did say the depth here, the lore of everything that's in these cities, planets, and environments, to me is what Cyberpunk sold 2 years ago or 3 years ago or whenever it was that they were aimed at, and that became so negative for me because it was much shallower than I thought. This is much deeper than I thought. I don't think Bethesda really even in their direct explained how much Bethesda storytelling they put into this universe, because it's all there.
Cool.
Yeah, I do like, to your point, like, one of the things I really loved about Prey was that if you wanted to go into all the computers and the books and the stories and the backgrounds on the people on the spaceship on Talon, you could do that, and it was built extremely well. And I think that Starfield is giving me glimpses of that. There's little side stories, there's community stories, there's individual relationship stories. There's a lot there that you can tell that a lot of developers spend a lot of time on. And I think, to Hogue's point, I do agree. Did I say I disagree with you on this point?
Oh, yeah, yes, you said that you really loved Cyberpunk and that you weren't ready to say that yet.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you say Cyberpunk. No, I agree with you on Starfield. Yeah, on Cyberpunk, I agree to I agree to a degree. Cyberpunk, I think we're off track again. But I think Cyberpunk, the relationships that you have with the key characters and the depth of those is really, really strong. I don't think the depth in the other areas is as good. I agree there. Yeah. So, but yes,
my favorite thing in Starfield, the thing I'm enjoying the most is actually I completed every single faction quest to completion, and I think those are some of the best content in Starfield. I actually really, really like the curated content in Starfield that feels like it's a lot more fleshed out and less of like the, hey, go and explore and find random stuff. I don't think it succeeds all the time. Most of the time, probably at the, hey, go and explore a random planet and find something to do. But it really, really knocks it out of the park with its curated stories. And those faction quest lines and a lot of the side quests are just like amazing.
They seem really strong.
They're really damn good, and they change the galaxy in major ways, and you get to make a decision at the end, usually one way or another, that has an impact on stuff. And people
I know you hate the space cops, but that's the side quest that a lot of people are going to start with.
Unfortunately for me, I hate the space cops, but they have one of the best faction quest lines. So do the Crimson Fleet, though. So you can do both, and you can like them. I both.
Think that.
And to the game's credit, I became the leader of the Crimson Fleet, and then later they let me join the UAC, and they were like, "You're reformed, right?" And they commented on the fact that I was the leader of the Crimson Fleet, but then they still let me do the quest line. So there was some cool kind of interaction there with like them commenting on decisions you make and stuff.
They do a lot of reflecting what you've done, and I really, really like that. It's really hard to do because you pay attention. You're in various spaces in even New Atlantis, and if you're in a restaurant, they'll talk about what they're eating. They'll be the people you expect, and then if you're in the Vanguard and you walk past a guard, they'll say, "Oh, you're with us," and they'll have these kinds of conversations that are just slightly different that reflect your experience. So I understand what you said earlier, Travis, that it sucks when that breaks, but
yes.
it really tries in a way that I don't think even Skyrim did.
Yeah, Skyrim, you basically didn't make choices. The Fallout games you do, like you blow up Megaton and stuff like that. But I will say this game succeeds in its main curated quests on commenting on your decisions and that sort of stuff, and they feel like they have real impact. My problem is that when you go beyond that little core bubble and you go to the outsides, then you start to realize a lot of your decisions kind of get ignored in a way that doesn't feel great. But when it hits, like if you just did all of the major faction quest lines and then went and did the main story, you'd probably love a lot of that content, because from what I've played, that's the best content in the game. It's like very good.
I think that same opinion was shared pretty widely across Skyrim too. Like some of the best quests in Skyrim are not the main story. It's the Thieves Guild and Dark Brotherhood. Yeah, exactly. Those are some
people really like in Skyrim is like the exploration that isn't any of the main quest lines. Like it's like the make your own fun kind of open world feel. Yeah. And I feel like this game succeeds less at that, but it succedes a lot more at the curated stuff. That's kind of where I come on it.
Gotcha. Raiden Blade,
£5. Wow, really? IGN completely announced incoming game that cross-plat and no mention of Xbox. This ran across many podcasts for almost a week pointing this. I didn't see it. I don't know exactly what that. I really don't.
I'm pretty sure he's just referencing like a press announcement of couple games that were coming out, like Lies of P, for instance, that just didn't have Xbox in the line of platforms. That's it.
So it might have been like an actual like clerical error or something.
It might have been an issue. It might have been. I don't know what this is referencing, but this is like another dot on your. It's another thumbtack on your cork board of conspiracy. And I'm sorry that you think that it's something larger. I guarantee that it's not.
Do you have a car alarm going off?
I do. Yeah, people are going to draw conclusions. I need to close the window.
The only thing I would say from working in a very large corporation as well is people do need to remember that IGN is a very big company, a global company. They're the biggest in the industry. There are a lot of temps. There are a lot of people that are just, quickly blasting things out. Mistakes will be made.
It's also hilarious.
Just keep that in mind.
The people will simultaneously hold the two opinions that IGN is a completely incompetently run business and that we're competent enough to orchestrate a massive secret conspiracy against certain platforms and games. And I don't think that both of those things can be true. Pick one. Either we're, we couldn't find either we're completely useless or we're super competent and controlling the world. Pick a lane, guys. Come on.
Raiden Blade follows up.
ACG is the best method of reviewing games. What is it? It's like buy, don't buy, sell, rent. Yeah.
I mean, I don't
have no problem with that system.
Yeah, it's fine.
Yeah, and I was gonna say ACG's been on this channel. Him and I have talked quite a bit. Good dude, does really good reviews. I've talked to him offline quite a bit about his Walking the Walk series, which I think is fantastic. He said he doesn't do it as much anymore because it just takes so much time. But if you've never watched his Walking the Walk series on like Witcher, oh my God, it's fantastic. But yeah, ACG's a good dude. But that just goes back to the point. You see, the problem here, Raiden, is you say it's the best method. Best is subjective. There's other people I know who don't like the way ACG reviews games and his outcome. It's whatever you prefer. If you think ACG gives the best reviews for your preferences, by all means, watch all of ACG's reviews. It's that simple.
I do think buy, what is it? Buy, don't buy, rent. I have questions about what rent means in this age. About that system. But yeah, I mean,
well, Travis, if you were paying attention, that's Game Pass. Because that's where you rent your games.
Right.
Oh, you only rent your games. Right.
So shouldn't it be called Stream or I don't know, subscription? Yeah. Not all games are on Game Pass, so I don't know how that system would work. But yeah, I know some people like ACG. I'm friendly with them. We interact on Twitter sometimes. There's pros and cons to every review system. I don't think his is better or worse than most.
And at the end of the day, he's one person with an opinion.
Yep.
But yeah, absolutely. Go check out my conversation with ACG. It's on the channel. Check it out.
There you go. Nathaniel Meyer, $1.99 super chat. So glad it runs great.
That's good to hear.
Series S. Yeah, that's awesome.
Funny enough, I don't think I said this, but Pete Hines told me and Colt this in LA. We ran into Pete Hines. We were talking to him about Starfield, and he said he had his Series S in the hotel room playing Starfield. So that's good to hear that it's well optimized. He was playing it back in June and it seemed to run well. So it's good. Good to hear. And Debbie W with a $20 super chat. Thanks for mentioning Palia, Travis. I've been playing for a month. I tend not to read reviews, but I'm interested to read your thoughts. I wouldn't be able to say that had I not gotten to know you a bit through Bitcast. That's what we do. We bring people together.
Yeah, Palia is awesome. I think Debbie might be assuming I wrote a review of that game. This game is in beta. It's not out yet officially, and so technically we haven't reviewed it because they haven't charged people money for it, which is sort of when we try to get in there. And since it's a free-to-play game, we'll probably just wait until it's a 1.0 and then write a review. I would love to review Palia. I don't know if I'm going to be the person on it, but I've been playing it, and I wrote a preview that you can watch on IGN or read. Yeah, it's a great game. Really fun. I'm glad people are enjoying it.
3 out of 10. I haven't played it, but that's just the score I'm giving it.
Yeah. Honestly, you might go there because it's a dating sim and a cozy game and an MMO. Like, I don't know. It's like all the things you wouldn't like.
I also haven't played it, and I disagree with your 3 out of 10. It's obviously a 6.
How dare you?
I have played it. It's better than a 3 out of 10.
Right.
Yeah. Hook enjoyed it. He was having fun.
Your opinion is going to be the least then of those. So. Gotcha.
All right. Finally, we're through those. I appreciate all the super chats, guys, genuinely, even the ones who didn't agree with us. So, Travis, we have talked a lot about Starfield. We have talked a lot about different aspects of it. I think you have covered a lot of your opinions during that discussion. Is there anything else that you want to touch on?
Basically what I want to say during my, here's what I think about it is, first, I need to refute something Hogue said about my time with Starfield, which is I did not just do the periphery stuff. I did everything in the game, side quests, faction quest lines all the way through the end, except for the main story. Literally just the main story is the only thing I avoided. And I'm now partway through the main story, like maybe 30-40%, something like that. I've played tens of hours maybe into the main story, but I'm still early-ish. I think it's a great game. I would have scored it an 8 out of 10. We were talking about it before the reviews went live, and I said that was my score ultimately. Earlier on, I was a lot colder on the game because it has a lot of obtuse systems. I think that one huge criticism I have about this game that we haven't talked about at all is I think it locks way too much behind leveling early on, where if you don't have stealth, you cannot sneak.
See, I disagree with that.
Yeah, I mean, some people disagree with it, but it starts to show itself. I think at the very beginning, you feel way too underpowered to the point where like I can't sneak at all. Like I have no ability to do anything without getting caught because I didn't buy a skill point in it. What's that?
Be a Space Ronin. I came with sneak.
Yeah. So actually, Ronin is one of the backgrounds I suggested on the thing. But like, for example, the ship mods are locked behind. You can't get Class B or Class C parts without buying 4 levels in piloting. You can't get. You have to buy 4 levels in ship design to unlock all of the different mods and stuff for ship. You have to buy 4 levels in weapon crafting before you can craft all the weapon mods. 4 levels in armor crafting before you can craft those. 4 levels in like it's just like there's so many things to buy that feel table stakes to me, that you spend all of your time investing in those things that feel essential, and then you never get to the point where you feel like you're making your own character that's unique until way later, because you're just spending all of your leveling getting the basic stuff that feels like you need it to just like play the game normally. And then you get to finally go, okay, now maybe I'll look at like the combat pool and try to buy some of those skills, because early on you'd be insane to buy like anything in that combat tree because there's so many essential things in other places. Like I can't use my jump pack unless I buy a point in that. Well, damn, that's so useful for exploring random worlds. I need to be able to have that extra jump and to get from platform to platform. Like that feels essential to me. So like that was sort of a problem I had with it early on, is like it felt like I didn't really have choices because I had to pick the stuff that was like mandatory or felt mandatory to me. So I think early on that's one of the problems. So yeah, but on the whole, I think the game crushes it in terms of the side quests and the faction quests, especially the faction quests. So far, the main quest seems like it's at least at parity with those storytelling. I think the combat is good enough. The starship battles feel a little basic to me. I wish they would have added a little bit more to that. I do like, again, the targeting system, another thing you have to pay to unlock with a skill point, feels also really essential for space combat, because if you want to be a pirate who's disabling weapon or ships and then boarding them, you kind of have to use the targeting system. So that feels tough. I love shipbuilding. I wrote a guide on starship building that was 3,000 words, and you can watch a video as well. That like shipbuilding is super fun. It gets, again, you have to spend like 8 skill points before you can add stuff to it, but it feels really good once you learn the system. And obviously you can watch my guide if you don't know it. But yeah, I think it succeeds at most of what it tries, which is why for me it would be an 8. I think there's certainly a lot of room for criticism, especially about the procedurally generated worlds, which I think are largely a miss. I don't think there's a lot of interesting stuff to do in those spaces. And the outpost building didn't really click with me. I know we had one person on the IGN team who like dove really, really deep into outpost building, so I'm sure there's more there. But again, when you have to pick which skills to unlocking all the outpost building stuff is a very specific build. I think the writing and characters are really good. And yeah, I put over 200 hours into this game at this point, so I have a ton of opinions, but ultimately I did come away really liking it. I give it a recommendation, but I could see how people, and I know people personally who were more annoyed with some of that stuff, some of the clunkiness than I was, especially the map thing. A lot of people were really pissed about that because they were just having a really hard time finding things in the world.
I think it's a good choice. I just would tweak it.
Yeah, I mean, so you're on the opposite side. I think it was a bad choice personally, but it doesn't bother me that much because I have a pretty good sense of direction and memory, and so I just learned the worlds pretty quick. But there's a lot of people on the team that have really bad sense of direction and are lost all the time, and they don't find it enjoyable.
As you pointed out, I'm old school. It
old
more
school,
reflects my older love of navigating games. So
yep. So some
people,
I
think we're
that'll click with some people and not with others. But obviously, there were some people who are more annoyed with that than in general. I think encumbrance sucks in the game. I think encumbrance is
annoying.
It's annoying, and you have to spend 8 skill points to get 4 toward your personal encumbrance and then 4 toward the payload skill to upgrade your ship. And I spent so much time, 3 million credits, trying to build a ship that could hold all the cargo I wanted. Now I have 10,000 mass cargo, but it took me like 70 hours to get to that point. Or 10,000 cargo. I am. Well, here's the thing: is I might seem like a hoarder, but later in the game, the game says stuff like, "Hey, get 5,000 of this mineral." And by the way, the mineral weighs 1 mass. So 5,000 mass, and you have to store it all in your ship at the same time. And it's stuff like that where you're just like, oh my God, like I need so much storage to make this work. And by the way, some of that is mandatory to get through the main story. So start saving money, get ready to build a starship with cargo in it. That stuff is cool, but for people who don't want to engage in that part of the fantasy, it's obnoxious. And especially early on, reaching your encumbrance max all the time just sucks. For me personally, I don't like encumbrance in really any game, and so this just hurt me at every level. But I think it's, even for encumbrance systems in general, I think it's worse than other Bethesda games. I actually think it lowered kind of the my tolerance in other Bethesda games where I could carry a lot but not as much. This one, you can pick up like certain items that weigh 10 mass, and it loads you down so much if you're carrying like 2 or 3 items like that. So I had a really hard time with certain aspects of it. So to me, it's not a perfect game. It's not a 9 or 10 to me. I don't think it can reach that level, but I love the ambition. I think it does a lot of things really well. I would have given it an 8 because some of the stuff that bothered my colleague Dan bothered me less. But I could understand why somebody would think it's a 7. I can also understand why somebody would think it's a 9. Maybe not a 10. 10 to me seems weird, but I can understand a lot of different opinions here, and there's a lot of room for those opinions, so I have no problem with it.
Well, especially
I played a lot.
Yeah, and I think as we've talked about the scope of the game and how vast it is, I think that the opinions will grow, right? Because there's lots more factors and facets that'll appeal to some and not appeal to others. Like the one thing I would say on your, the funny thing is, and we do this a lot here, but like you talking about the skills and the sneaking and the encumbrance and stuff. It's funny because I see what you're saying, and I can see how that would be an annoyance. And then in my mind, the way I look at it is one of the first things I did was I went to that skill tree and I read every skill. It's just the way I play games. And I started to prioritize. Okay, here's where I want to go next. Here's what I'm going to need. And then my play style will dictate what skills I prioritize, right? I'm a very sneaky player. I like to pickpocket. I like to break into stuff. So most of my stuff.
I have a recommendation for you then.
Okay.
Go to Neon and apply for a job at Ryujin Industries. Trust me.
Ryujin is great.
Go do that quest line. It's a 100% stealth and social encounters. Do it.
Okay.
Play that quest line. It's amazing.
Can I ask you one question about the skills since you're talking about them?
Sure.
Yeah.
How do they work? Is it like Skyrim based where like you sneak and you do something and you kind of
it's a hybrid mode. It's a hybrid mode.
Mix.
You buy the skill points, but then you also have to complete a little challenge before you can buy the next level in it. And so, for example, if you're trying to level up encumbrance, you'll have to run a certain amount of distance while you're encumbered, and then it'll unlock the next skill. So they kind of mix the best of both worlds where you're spending points on skills, but you also have to engage in those systems before you can.
I really like it.
It's a really good system. My problem is more that there's so much that feels essential that it's a bummer to have to spend all of your first points on stuff that feels like they should be table stakes. But I get why. The flip side of that is that every skill point feels so valuable. Every time you level up, you're like, yes, because they're just so useful getting those skill points.
It does feel very useful.
I think that's where I was going. That's part of the RPG aspect for me. I feel like I'm building my character over time, and that to me is fun.
Yeah,
I think I wouldn't have put boost packs behind a skill. I agree with you, Travis, on that. But
it feels essential.
Well, I just think that the game is built around you having a boost. So I wouldn't have put that there, but I was surprised to find it. And it's interesting. Like I got a mission where I was supposed to take out a ship's engines, and I was like, how? And you go into the help screen, and it's like, well, you could hit X if you have this skill here. And I was like, oh, you put it behind a skill, you bastard.
Yep.
So they have a lot of stuff that's actual functions in the game that's behind a skill. I like that means that the skills matter a lot. I don't know that I agree that they feel essential yet. I'm going to yield to you who has played more than me, but
yeah. Like it become the reason I say they feel essential is
I also
because
have 5 points in combat, so I'm insane. Per the
that is crazy. And also
I have 0.
Respect.
Yeah, I have 0.
0 is the right answer, by the way. The reason they feel essential to me, Hogue, is because when you make a second or third character, as I have, you start to realize you have to make a beeline for all the same skills, and that's where it starts to feel like, okay, now I don't get to do really the RP part because I'm just busy unlocking all the stuff I know I need to even get to the basic of the game. And that bothers me a little bit. I think that they could have, for example, given you access to the targeting system, and then all 4 levels could have been about making it better and making it work and more functional and stronger, rather than saying you can't use it at all. And you can get missions that basically require it, and then you have to wait until you have a skill point free and spend it there. I think some of that to me feels like it runs counter to the idea of I'm role playing my own character, because there's stuff you just have to unlock. Your first 10 levels are all you spent the points for you, almost those first 10 levels.
It's probably a couple things you could have started with. I agree there.
Can I ask you one more question before we move on?
Of course.
This is kind of a general, we've seen games like Elden Ring kind of redefine the genre of Souls-like games, or move it forward. And I know you guys haven't played as much as maybe Travis. Does this do that for this genre of games, or at least some systems or small parts? Like, what parts of the game that you've experienced so far kind of you can go, okay, I can see this game coming out later copying that, or that's what is going to be the standard for going forward with games that Bethesda games. You guys have you, and you guys might be too early to answer that question so far, but
I can answer it for sure. I think that it definitely, I don't think it's a revolutionary game in most regards, but I do think it pushes the genre forward in certain ways. I think that the level of detail you get in a game this big with some of the stories is going to be looked at by other developers and go, damn, how did they do that? Like, that's super cool. I think stuff like that. But I think in certain areas, it'll be viewed, I think, as an experiment that didn't really come together in the same way that they had hoped. And I think a lot of the hype around exploring 1,000 planets, for example, I think that's probably going to end up being it was nice that they tried it, but they didn't really nail it in the way that a lot of people were kind of hoping or expecting they would. So I think it'll push it forward in certain ways, and I think that's great. And I think it's going to be a huge tentpole game regardless, even if it's a little divisive. And I do think the Metacritic score will probably go down over time, just because as Ains learned, a lot of outlets didn't get copies, and I think some of those are going to be mixed opinions probably. But regardless of that, I think it's a huge game, and I'm certainly loving it, and certain aspects of it I think will be looked at as examples by other developers in the future.
I
go
agree.
Ahead. I don't think it's a sea change. It's not Elden Ring. It's essentially a Bethesda game in future space, which is one of the reasons why I think a lot of people react negatively. We're not to get too far back into the review concept, but if your expectations were that more than a little bit of what they were selling in the direct, right? I've been around the block on this. So even when we had the direct before the summer, I said, well, that was a really good direct, but I do worry a little bit about what they are implying they're selling, when I don't think the game will come together that way. And I always thought that, and it did come together in the way, even better, honestly, than I had expected. And so it's a very positive review from me. But yes, if you thought it was a No Man's Sky universe simulator thing, it's not. So I think that's where some people are going to get that mixed impression. I think Travis is right there. But where it's really impressive, what I've talked about a couple of times now, is that reflectiveness of your experience from NPCs. I'm just used to a Bethesda experience, and an experience for anybody else. It's not a Bethesda problem, where the NPCs are generic. They're not really reflective of the area that you're in, the city that you're in, whatever it is that you're experiencing. And in this particular game, they are responsive to where they are. They're responsive to who they're supposed to be. They're responsive to who you're supposed to be, in a way that I think is really cool. So it adds to that immersion in a way that I don't think a lot of games have been able to accomplish. Now, is that just volume and money and people? Maybe. But that's
probably part of it.
That's where I think it's going to be the most impressive long term.
Yeah, I would add, Dan, that everything these guys just said, I would agree with so far. Again, I have to keep saying 20 hours in, we'll obviously revisit these opinions in the coming weeks and shows. Sure. But I think that for me, I look at it as we've been talking, what do I want to be doing? I want to be playing Starfield.
Yep.
And when a game has that grip on you to where you're thinking about it, we talk about this a lot, right? There's that aspect, but I think what's really neat in addition that Starfield does well, and Bethesda games usually do well, is you want to go back and play it, but you have no idea what you're going to experience next. And I love that. I love just being able to get lost in a world
with the flow.
that has all these different things. And my experience will be different from Travis's in some aspects, of course. And Travis's will be different from Hoag's, and a lot of people will experience different things. And I adore that. And I think they're one of the few companies that does that extremely well, despite, as we've talked about, some of the issues in other areas. I would also say the one thing I don't hear a lot of people talking about, but I think is true, and this is not to, this is a separate thing from its current state and the review process of the game at launch. But the canvas for this game and the future of mod support, expansions, and the stuff that can be built into this game in the years to come, I think is going to be more extensive than what's been done in the past Bethesda games. And if you think about the stuff that's been done in Skyrim or Oblivion, it's absolutely incredible what people have built over years. So I can only imagine what Starfield will look like in 1 year, 2 year, 5, 10 years time. And I think that the canvas they've built in this game is going to really.
I'm looking forward to the Expanse total conversion. Sorry to jump on you, Ains.
No, you're fine. Yeah, that's a perfect example, right? And I think you're going to see that kind of stuff over time.
Yeah, so I also think they're gonna make hay of like the fact that there's so many biomes that you can just throw stuff on.
No,
like
that's my point.
You can just pick a planet and be like, I'm going to put a quest line and a new faction on this random planet, and that's going to be weird.
Yeah, I think it's going to be amazing.
Break the game for a while. I bet you
probably
modders are going to break the game for a while on this.
Of course, but I think at the end of the day, for me, right now, if you go out and say, okay, stop playing Starfield and go play this instead, I don't know what someone would recommend, because there's not many games that give you this type of experience.
Baldur's Gate.
Well, sure, but
these two games but that's to each other. No, I'm not saying they're identical. I'm saying that like that's the, if you had to say, all right, I'm not allowed to play Starfield. My wife took it away from me. What can I play? Baldur's Gate is the answer.
Yeah,
sure. Correct. It's they're very different games. Okay, I see why you would say that,
but they get a lot of the same stuff right. And I would say Baldur's Gate does some of that stuff a lot better. So yeah,
I'm agreeing.
In my head, they're in the fully built out world, multi-path quest, do what you feel genre.
Yes, but I can play this in first-person shooter mode if I want to. I can play it whether Travis agrees with that or not.
It's not D&D. Yeah, no, there's advantages.
So I mean, it's different. But my point being is, there's not many games that give you this type of experience, and I think that says something about it. It's what I wanted out of the game. It has hit those expectations despite some little things like we've talked about. So there.
That's all that matters.
Yeah. And I think, Dan, I can't remember, Dan, where you were on prior Bethesda experiences.
I've always enjoyed them. I had a good time with Fallout 4. I was never like that big Bethesda head, that was like, I have to play this. I'm more of a third person, but I can play first person. That's not a big deal. I'm not. After playing Baldur's Gate 3 on a Steam Deck, 30 frames might not matter as much as it did.
I don't think it would matter at all.
But I think some of the clunkiness. I think some of the clunkiness is going to hurt Dan a little bit more than it hurt the rest.
Maybe, but on the 30 frames, it doesn't feel. It feels like a really good 30. Like you don't really notice it.
Yeah, it does. Really I will say that. I didn't know. I played it on the Series X the whole time, and most of the time, and I was chilling. It was good.
No, it's a good blur. It's solid. It's nice. It doesn't feel bad.
Okay. No, turn off film grain.
Yeah, I mean,
turn off film grain. Always turn off film grain.
Yep. Yeah,
I love the film grain on this.
Really? Of course you do, because it makes it look more like Silver Age sci-fi. You dork.
It looks great with the film
I love you. I love you, Hoag, you dork.
I told you this was made for me because I also love the entire artistic direction. I love it all.
Yeah.
I do too.
Yeah, what's funny is you and Dan Stapleton both said before the game came out, this game looks like it was made for me, and had pretty different conclusions, at least so far. So it's kind of interesting.
And on PC, it's been playing great. Now, again, I have a brand new PC, top of line CPU, and these games are CPU heavy, so it runs super, super smooth, and it supports FSR 2.0. Someone, I think way earlier in the show, said there's already a mod out there to get it to work with DLSS, which sounds very cool. So I'll have to start looking into that. Mods are already being created as we speak. So
I already saw a cargo mod.
Like you said,
cargo side by tens of thousands.
Mods are going to be supported on Xbox as well. Yes,
they aren't yet though.
Eventually, yeah.
Okay.
I haven't
see it in
looked.
the menu on Xbox. I don't see it in the menu. Yeah.
Correct. That's true. So anyway, that's our initial conversation on Starfield. Our 10-minute conversation. There's a lot to say about this game, and I think we'll be talking about it for weeks to come. Of course,
there is. It's so big. I'm sitting here feeling like, there's like 600 more things we could say.
Yep.
Yes. Yeah, and we still have a lot to experience too.
Hope. Down to 20 seconds because the show's gone on for so long. Yeah.
You have talked a lot on this show. Stop it.
Mostly about reviews, not about Starfield.
But we'll talk more about it. So I think there's only a couple other things I wanted to comment on real quick. One is about PlayStation Plus raising the price of PlayStation Plus. PlayStation raising the price of PS Plus. So. Yeah, 35%, which is pretty extensive. And the weird thing is they're just like, okay, it's now 35% more expensive. Do you get anything else? No, you're getting exactly what you get today.
Inflation. I don't know.
I don't know. It seems a lot to me, guys. This is the first time since PS Plus started that I'm actually considering getting rid of it because I just don't see the point in it for me. Yeah, I've had it the whole time. Yeah.
I got in right when they changed it last time when we went to the tiers. There was like a week span where you could like combine the what it was that used to be called like extra plus your other thing, and I got I spent like $80 and I got like 3 years when they converted it because then they stopped converting it at one point or you couldn't do that, but I got it all in where I had like a year extra and the year of this, and it all converted to like 3 years. If I did not have that, it'd be gone after this for sure. Because I only have Game
Pass. You're talking about the tier, and you're just talking about base PS Plus.
Yeah, they're all going up.
It's one of the tier now. Essential is going up to $80. So yeah.
God damn.
$80 for what?
That's
that's
cloud saves. Cloud saves.
And that's the frustrating thing on PlayStation is they lock cloud saves behind PS Plus, which is nuts. That's nuts.
That feels essential. Why did they lock that behind a skill point?
It's foundational.
It's foundational.
So we put up an article about this, obviously just giving the facts, but personally, I don't like this at all. I don't see what I'm getting for that money. Again, if they show that they're going to release more games day and date, like they got Sea of Stars day and date like Game Pass did, right? If they do that more or start to give some of their games day and date, okay, you can make an argument for it. But as it stands today, no, this isn't doing it.
Yeah, it's the worst.
So, yeah.
Terrible.
All right. Well, that was easy.
Here's the thing. Let's just say this out. All paid, like online should be free on all consoles.
Agree.
Like generic, I should be able to play any of my games multiplayer. Like if you want to charge for, access to a bunch of games, if you want to charge from, whatever, that's fine. But like out of the box, I should be able to play without Xbox Live or PlayStation Plus. I shouldn't have to do it. This is, 2023. Where we can do it all on PC. Nobody charges you to access your internet twice. So it's just insane to me. I understand why they do it. I understand.
You can blame that one on Microsoft. Yeah, they set that market.
Yeah, bastards.
Well, 20 years ago.
Yeah, that's how market gets set.
Oh, I know, but
the market, PlayStation tried to do the opposite, and then eventually they were like, we
need to make more money.
So I think there's probably a reason. I don't know if it's the market. I bet you there's economics behind doing it. But
the economics are we think you'll pay.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah,
well, I was gonna say, Katie Cotton just said they on PlayStation they lock Diablo party play behind PS Plus.
Terrible.
So you couldn't even play in a party if you're just a regular PlayStation player.
I mean, that's fine by me. I don't really play multiplayer, but it's such a stupid thing. That's my nuanced take. It's done. That's it. I wish we didn't have it.
Well, it is unusual. It's a wonder why they did it right now, because usually you'd hope that if you're going to have an increase like that, you're going to announce that you signed on Call of Duty or that you're putting your first party games in there or something.
Yeah. This is what happens when you don't have somebody else pushing you. You can go ahead and charge whatever you want, right? You can just make whatever you want it to do because they're not really competing. I mean, you can say Xbox is, but they're not. And they've been kind of dominating, so they can just kind of raise the prices and do whatever they want. Eventually,
until it doesn't work.
Yeah, exactly.
Can I just say I really like it when Dan makes his like more controversial points while he's eating, because there's something really like mafioso about it, like he's eating his gabagool as he like orders a hit. He's like, there's something wrong with this industry, he's like, it's really haichu, perfect. Yeah.
I
like
get
it
my
a
blood
lot.
sugar going, man.
It gives you some gravitas, like you don't even care. You're eating messily while you take somebody out. I like that.
See, I see sports radio call-in commenter when I hear the eating.
Perfect.
This is Dan from Chicago. My thoughts are
first time caller, long
time listener, first time caller.
My brains go to different places. I don't think we have that problem. I've never heard somebody talking when they call into a radio show in California. That's interesting.
Because they don't have sports there.
Yeah. What? Have you heard of the Warriors, sir? They're a little bit of a team. Bro.
Nobody knows who the Lakers are. It's true.
Yeah. Sure.
What was I going to say?
More. What do you think about that?
No, I'm going to mute you. You're muted. Done. What was I going to say? Sorry, I lost my train of thought. Nintendo Direct, real quick. I just want to comment on Super Mario Brothers Wonder, because it looks fantastic. And I know we are in a year of fantastic games, but I am a 2D Mario stan. And the fact that we're getting a fully fledged new 2D Mario game, proper 2D Mario game, I am incredibly excited about. And the Direct only doubled that down. I was a little nervous going into the Direct because I was hoping it wasn't going to be this Nintendo half-assed approach to a new Mario 2D game. And luckily, it doesn't look like it is. It looks fantastic. And I'm super excited. And I'm very happy I'm going to get to turn on my Switch because I rarely get to do that. So I'm very happy that I get to do that.
The option's always there, Ains. That's the choice you make.
There's some good games there.
Good games are...
Pikmin 4 has been fantastic.
I mean,
still goated.
Big man.
Dude, I got into Tears of the Kingdom, and then like 19 other games hit, and I've just left it behind.
But you have to admit, it's a damn good game, Tears of the Kingdom. I liked
what I was playing so far. And by the way, the LA Kings. Thank you, older gamer. How would I forget to even mention the Kings? Good God.
Yeah, because you forget about them because they're not real. Wow. That's what you're doing,
bro.
How
dare you, sir?
They knocked the Blackhawks out in 2 championships. I'll say that.
They did.
Don't hate us because you ain't us, Dan. Don't hate us because you ain't us.
Yeah, you're a 49ers fan and Kings fan. You're all over the place, Ames.
No. We got more Super Bowls than the Chiefs. I'm born in San Francisco.
Let's go, baby. Niners fan. Word.
We've talked about this, man. I'm born in San Fran. Of course I'm a Niners fan.
I refuse to believe that Travis actually watched sports, let alone.
Yeah, I've never heard of sports.
The sports balls.
What's that spheroid they throw down the field?
Yeah.
And why do they kick it sometimes? Super Mario Wonder. You guys are as hyped about this as I am?
Yeah. Hell yeah.
I'm hyped enough to not watch the Direct. I didn't want to know anything, honestly.
Okay. Well, you're
a specific type of hype.
Yeah, you are in for a nice surprise. And will I just say too, if you weren't aware, the one thing I will say for you and your girls is it has 4-player local and online co-op, which is awesome. So you guys will be able to play it together.
I also didn't watch the Direct experience. Some of my coworkers had a chance to play Mario Wonder recently, and I heard from them their impressions, and I was like, all right, I'm going to not watch the Direct because that's all I need to hear. So I'm in Hoag's camp as well. I'm probably going to go in blind, but just from what I've heard, people came away pretty impressed.
The console?
Yeah.
You guys saw that, right?
Say it again?
There's like a console. Isn't they announced a console?
There's a Mario Red themed console. Yeah, that's... It comes out 2 weeks prior to launch of the game, so it's $350. It's all red, and it has a few little Mario things on it. If you like that sort of thing,
it's very clean. I like it.
It is.
If I get, I'm gonna have to trade in some of the SG OLED stock and see what we have back there.
Good old Chet.
Good old Chet.
A couple quick questions. I guess we can all bet on this one. It says, Ains, how many players will Starfield have in the first week? Will it pass Forza Horizon? What do you guys think?
Probably. How could it not?
How could it not? I don't know. Forza Horizon was huge. It had like, I forget now, 12, 14 million first week, something like that.
Record holder, right?
I don't know. I thought Halo passed it. I think Halo hit 20 million in a couple weeks. I can't remember off the top of my head, but it's gonna be a lot. I'll say
Oh
that.
yeah,
I do think it matters. It matters that in this, I would say probably, but like there's so much out there right now, like just
That's
games that might hinder it a little bit. But I would, if anything does, it's going to be Starfield for sure.
Yeah, everybody that has Game Pass is going to be playing Starfield.
Yeah, for sure.
Even if they play for 2 hours, they'll at least try it for sure.
Yep.
Keep in mind, there's been a lot of players concurrent online, and it's still in early access, which, as you guys know, I hate that term. But
yeah, it's already way up there.
It's in people who aren't poor can't play access.
I didn't full edition.
Nice.
Yeah, Tal says Halo did 21 million in the first month, so I guess we'll see.
There you go. Yeah, I think it'll beat that.
And then the only other thing, as a Halo player, and I'm a Destiny main, how's the gunplay in Starfield? So to Travis's point, it is not Halo, it is not Destiny. It's just not.
Yep.
And it was never going to be those things, right? But it is. I find the combat way better than Skyrim. I will say that. I think it's more.
Fallout too.
I mean, that's
better than Fallout as well. I think it's competent for a Bethesda RPG.
System, honestly, I do kind of miss VATS.
VATS is cool. VATS is fun. But I think it's competent for a Bethesda RPG. You can tell that they had some people help them on it. But don't expect Destiny or Halo. I mean, those are the two of the three, probably with Apex, the best feeling games literally in the world in terms of shooting. So
even games slightly below that, I think it's probably even a little bit below that. It's a little slidey, a little clunky, but I think it's passable for this RPG. It's probably, it's.
I like it.
It's as good as I was expecting, and I have fun doing it. I don't like regret my time in it. So
the one thing I do wish it had, which I was talking to a couple other people too, is a slide. I see someone else mention
it does have a slide. You have to buy it, Ains. Like everything in the game, you have to unlock it with a skill point.
Okay.
Exactly my point.
You got me. You got me. You got me on the slide. You got me on the slide.
There you go, guys.
Oh, a slide, like a slide. Okay,
combat slide. You have to buy it. That's This is my point with the game, is that it locks so much stuff behind skills. It makes the skills feel really valuable, but it has the offset of like, damn it, like, why is there so much I have to unlock?
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. You got me on that one. I didn't agree earlier. You got me on the slide. You got me.
Wrecked. Foundational. I don't know what I'm talking about.
Foundational.
What? Lean?
Lean around a corner. I don't think you can lean around corners.
You can. There's a lean.
Is there a skill?
That's free.
I don't think so. I think that one's free. It does not teach you how to do it. So here's another thing. This game has a whole bunch of stuff it does not teach you, and people don't realize how clunky it is until they realize all the stuff that they didn't know was in the game. And
I didn't know you could lean.
God, how does it not tell you all this stuff? Yeah, leaning is in the game.
Okay. There you go. By the way, shout out Mr. Pompa, my Halo partner in crime. Just gifted 5 memberships over on the Season Gaming side. Thank you, brother. Appreciate you. And speaking of Halo, the HES is on. I'm going to go watch that now that we wrap up our 3-hour show. Boys, good Lord, we've been talking. All right. Well, guys, everyone, chat, thank you for hanging out with us today. Nice. Nearly 400 people chilling with us today. I know we had a couple people questioning things that we spent probably a little too much time on the argumentative side of the reviews and Twitter and stuff. But I think we had a good conversation about those things as well. So I appreciate it. I'm going to go watch HCS and play more Starfield.
I'm going to go get some Chinese food and play more Baldur's Gate 3.
There you go.
Maybe all good choices. Gaming is fun.
On our side, on the Season Gaming side, real quick, we're gonna, I think later today, actually have a review of the expansion for Teenage Mutant Turtles Shredder's Revenge. That got its first expansion, so that's going up from Elu later today, and then Cast Co-op should finally be back this week. We've been off for a long time, just a lot of stuff going on in our lives, but me and Joe and Luke should be back at it this week, obviously talking Starfield and other things as well, see what those guys think. Travis, what you got going on, man?
Yeah, you can read my preview of Path of Exile 2, which I got to play for an hour recently. I played some of that game. Feels really good. The Druid class where you play as a bear.
Why have you not been DMing me about this? I don't care if there's an NDA. DM me.
Yeah, there's no NDA. I can talk about it. I can fully chat about it. So I'm happy to talk about that, but you can read and watch my preview on IGN.com. And my takeaway was that the Druid feel real good in Path of Exile 2, better than Diablo 4's Druid. Namely,
how dare you?
You can stay as a bear for as long as you want, including in town, and you can roll as a bear. They gave a special bear roll. which is amazing. Anyway, you need to watch my video. It's very fun. So I played that. You can watch that. And then my next review is Liza P, which isn't until September 14th. So no major updates from me. And if you would please check out the guides I made for Starfield. I made a guide on how to make money quickly. I made a guide on starting backgrounds and traits if you haven't started the game yet. And then I also made a really, really, really in-depth guide on how to build a starship, including tips on how you can smuggle items and how you can get shielded cargo, which is very complicated thing about the game that it doesn't really explain to you. So watch all of those guides as well. And excited, happy to be here. Sorry if people don't like me, to be here. But that's part of it. It's part of the industry. Nobody likes me.
I'm just glad they still have me on.
No, I'm not going to watch any of your guides because I hate guides. But guides. I'm sure millions of people will. So that's awesome that you created them. So,
I don't have anything to hawk. I don't have any reviews in. I don't have any videos currently planned. But I am going to play some more Starfield this week, and that's going to be enjoyable.
Perfect. Hell yeah!
There you go. That's all. It's all it's about at the end of the day, guys. And also, remember that.
Can I say one last thing about Starfield? I love Hoag's journey for Starfield. He was the most against it out of any of us after the initial reveal.
That's actually true.
Leading up to it, and he has flipped to now maybe be the most positive on the panel about it. And I just love to see that story because it's way too often that I see people entrenched in their views where they're unwilling to be proven wrong and to be surprised and delighted by something. And I think Hoag's journey progressively having actively like being disappointed to maybe a little bit of hope to actually some hype to straight up like just loving it and playing it in its current form. I love seeing stories like that. And so round of applause to Hoag for giving this game a chance and ending up loving it. I think that's awesome.
I mean, that's how it should go, right?
Yeah, exactly.
It should go from having some healthy skepticism to seeing more information, taking that information in, actually getting hands-on, and then next thing you know, crazy that's how stuff works.
I know.
But
amazing.
I do think Hoag's very good at that. You are not afraid to say your opinion has changed on something, which is good. Your opinions are usually wrong, but I appreciate that you do that. Although Mass Effect 1, like we said, I mean, that's a fact though. So that's not really an opinion. So.
Is it a fact?
Okay. Yeah, we're good. We're good. All right, guys. Enjoy your games.
Subjective discussion.
It's objectively the best Mass Effect game. So
oh boy. Here we go.
It is objectively the Mass Effect without a number.
There you go.
Andromeda also doesn't have a number.
Don't bring up Andromeda around Hoag. Don't.
What are we doing here?
Enjoy your gaming this week, whether you're playing Starfield or whatever you're playing. I hope you enjoy it as always. Thank you for hanging out with us. We will see you next Sunday. Until then.
See you guys.